All right, folks, this episode is one of my favorite chats we've had this year, maybe of all time. Kimmy is a gift to snowboarding. That's an understatement. She's so wise. She's been through so much. You know, she's a cancer survivor. She just came out with her film Butterfly in a Blizzard, which is hugely inspirational. Go watch that if you haven't watched it. She's won Rider of the Year, first female to do a double backflip. She got a natural selection podium after beating cancer. Her story's incredible. She's a mom. She's just freaking awesome. That's all I can say about Kimmy Fasani. I think you guys are going to love it. Before we get into the show, I also want to let you guys know that 70% of the people watching our show are not subscribed. So it's huge for us. It's a massive way to help us out is if you just subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever you're watching or listening. It helps us a ton. And lastly, I got to give a huge thank you to all the sponsors that come on board and make this show possible. Woodward, Bubs, Pub Beer, Yeti, Hippies, Turtlebox, Onyx, Spark R&D, Snow League, Smith, Ski-Doo, Paradox, and Arbor. Thank you guys so much, and let's get into the show.
You are listening to the
Hey, MFM, see you on the lift. Back attack, dude.
Bon voyage!
Get that damn car off of the hill.
Slide down them big hills. You know what I mean? On the big, nice burgundy snowboard.
All right, hello and welcome to the Bomb Hole. Today, co-hosting, we got Mary Walsh to my right. What's happening, Mary?
I don't really know where to look, but I'm excited to be here with two people that I absolutely adore. So very, very good this morning.
Absolutely, and it is an honor to have yourself, Kimmy Fasani, in studio. How you feeling?
I'm so excited to be here. You know, being an onlooker for so long, it's nice to be in the studio with you guys. Thanks,
it.
Mary, for being here too.
Oh, thank you for having me, you guys.
Cool. Well, let's just start with how this winter's gone for you so far.
Yeah, I would say this winter's been a lot of school drop-offs. You know, I have a almost 4 and an almost 7-year-old, and it's busy. You know, all the sports and hockey and being a mom.
You've been getting out there?
I have. It's been awesome. Mammoth has great groomers. We just got some snow, so just getting I feel like we're still on the early side of the season, but it's been really fun to just do hot laps on the mountain.
Ooh, love it. I got to ask too, kids ski, snowboard, goofy, regs, where are we at?
Yeah, so both kids learned to ski, and then Koa just totally clicked into snowboarding. And it's he's got the Burton kids step-on bindings, and it just changed his whole approach to being on the mountain now. And he's always asking me to take him, and he is regular. So Chris has a nice surf buddy. And but yeah, it's just so fun. He can't wait to hit jumps. But right now he does 90 slides up the takeoff. And you're this could go one of two ways.
I remember when you first had Koa and it was kind of okay, is he going to ski or snowboard? And I remember both you and Chris were whatever he wants, but it has to feel kind of good that he's now snowboarding.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so fun to be able to be on the mountain with these little humans that for years we have dedicated so much time to helping them see how they could hit the mountain. And Chris will, if they get tired, he'll throw them on his shoulders so that they'll get going really fast. But now watching them hit little side hits and find their own flow, it's magic. Yeah.
It's incredible. And so you live in Mammoth and Oceanside, is that correct?
Yeah, Mammoth is our primary home.
Yep.
And then whenever we get broken, we head down to Oceanside and see a trainer and just enjoy some sunshine.
That's cool. What a great place for a kid to grow up to. The mountain being such close proximity, so much terrain. It's got to be perfect.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I moved there in 2002 because it was the place to be, and just found so much connection with the mountain, the town, and then obviously meeting Chris. But with the kids now, just watching how much they can do outside. They spend most of their days outside, and I'm if there's anything, that's all I want for them.
Cool. Well, let's talk about Mammoth 2002, the glory days. That's all the grenade crew. That's all the big dogs, Pterodactyls, everyone, huh?
Yeah, I mean, being able to be on chair 6 at Mammoth Mountain and riding the chair with Tara and just kind of sitting in the corner of the chair and watching her do so many awesome tricks as a young girl, it was so inspiring to me. And it was also super intimidating because it would be her, Kevin Jones, the whole posse up there was just, the people that I had hanging on my wall for posters, and to live in it at the same time and like trying to make it with them or alongside them was just so rad. And seeing how many pros came out of that time frame, pretty awesome.
Cool.
And at that time too, was that when you first met Kelly in that time?
Yeah. So Kelly Clark and I, like Molly Aguirre, Chanel Sladix, Elena was like 13, 14 living with us. There was just so many up and comers, because I think really what the breakthrough for me was in finding Mammoth was USASA had nationals there, 2000 and 2001. And so I got familiar with the park then and was like, oh my gosh, this place is so rad. And obviously like the jumps were massive, but it seemed so inviting. It was always sunny. And just having such like an awesome contingency of like even the Jackson brothers. Like there was so much, it was just so fun to live in that town at that time, and obviously still now.
Absolutely. I remember going there and going up the chairlift. You see Kyle Clancy and Shane Flood and Lane Knack and Danny Cass and Kevin Jones, and just everywhere you look, there's just some person you'd seen in the videos.
Exactly. And it was like a proving ground too. Like you'd step up to middle jump, and I remember like even riding with like the Dawood brothers, like Jared Dawood, and I would hit the jumps together, and Hannah Beeman was there, you know, and like it was just, if the chair was spinning and you were hitting middle jump, it was like you would kind of almost do a chair check, like who's on the chair? Like this feels a little scary, but also
A little Hollywood line.
Yeah, exactly. Like, am I learning a new trick right now? Probably not, because that person's on the chair. I don't want to fall. But it was awesome because it was super motivating too, because everybody was just throwing down.
Cool. Well, should we run it back to how you found snowboarding in the first place?
Yeah. So I started off as a skier, and my mom was a ski bum up in Truckee, and she was a nurse, and we had this thing called Buddy Warner, which was like a ski program, and there was a handful of guys that I had gone to school with that would go from Buddy Warner ski races, even in their spandex, and like put on their snowboard. And that was kind of like this window in for me where I was like, oh my gosh, that looks so rad. My mom didn't really know if it would be a sport that would stick, so she was really hesitant. I think I just got to a level that was I could keep up with her on my skis, but she surprised me in 1993 with a Craig Kelly 153 with like 3 strap bindings and my Sorels, and I got a lesson at Soda Springs. Like that was my gift for Christmas, and I remember like from that first moment that I put that board on my feet, I was like, yeah, like this is just something different. And it was even just the access to like little side hits in the trees. Like I wouldn't do that on my skis, but like on my snowboard, like I wanted to be in the trees. I wanted to be doing something different. And there was like that moment too where like snowboarders could have jumps and skiers, they weren't allowed in the park or something. Or like we would build jumps under the chairlift. And it was just the freedom. It just opened my life to like the freedom of what snowboarding could be. And it was still so new that it felt different, and especially different from what my mom did.
How did, growing up in Tahoe, do you feel like that shaped your perspective on snowboarding in the early part of your career?
Growing up in Truckee was a really like that community is so small, and there was only a handful of us that would go to the mountain on the weekends or whatever, but it was just being surrounded by such awesome terrain that I didn't really even understand growing up there, because I would stick to the groomers when I was like transitioning and like figuring it out. But the parks and the mountains, they were some of the first that were accepting snowboarding. And so I think that really just opened up this whole world for me of like going to Boreal at night. And Boreal at night in like the late 90s was all the pros too, because it was like one of the only places you could ride, and they had an epic terrain park and a little mini pipe or whatever. And it was just that same vibe where like after school I could show up at Boreal, and it was like a $49 pass. So it was super inviting for kids and whatever. And it just made me feel like I was doing something that not many people even knew about yet. And that made it feel super unique and fun.
Yeah, kind of that early sense of belonging, which is so huge, especially when you're that age. To find something that makes you feel like you're a part of it is really, really special.
Yeah, and I think for me too, like starting to compete in USASA events, I learned how to do a backflip in my backyard. And I think it was in 1999. And the magazine or the local newspaper did an article like saying that I was going for the Olympics someday. Like that was like this like movement, you know, and they posted that photo in the newspaper. And it was just like the way I was able to start progressing and even just like leaning into this passion that I didn't even know was a passion, but coming from gymnastics, I had been a gymnast and I had broken so many bones and I had to have surgery on my arm, and that really took me out of gymnastics. So it gave me like a different passion point. And really like this turning point was when my dad died from cancer in 1999. It like totally pushed me into staying more on the mountain. And I just wanted to be out there, and I didn't know why.
Well, there's something you said. We'll get into your new film that's incredible, but one thing that really stood out to me, I don't remember the exact verbiage, but you said that you use snowboarding as your way to cope or way to heal, or I don't remember the exact verbiage. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think snowboarding just gave me this outlet to spend time out in nature, and I wouldn't have known it while I was living in it, but just felt like space and healing, and like it gave me a different, almost like an alias. Like I was able to like be super sad and emotional at home and like blasting Sarah McLachlan Angel. And my mom was like, what the heck are you doing? Like, go leave the house. And I would get up on the mountain and like, I would have a ponytail, like no hat. It would be snowing. I would have like this thermally shirt on, you know, with my gloves over. Such whack style, but it didn't matter because I was like learning how to like grab my board, and like at the time it was like learning how to do a grasser, and like
wow.
I was on the snowboard team at North Star, and I just felt like it was my community. It was like this separate side of my life that I didn't even have to be part of the grief of losing somebody. I could be somebody that was stronger and empowered, and I could find progression and growth in a sport. And I feel like that really kept me like train on the tracks, because it could have gotten pretty dark.
Yeah. At that time, were you aware of like, this is something I want to be a pro, like these other people I'm seeing? Or was it more just like, in this moment, I feel so excited about this, I just want to keep going?
When I would show up at contests, it was usually me and maybe one or two other girls. And that was like in our age bracket. And I think I realized that it was still so fresh that I just wanted to be part of this. And I saw that like there was so much room to expand the sport, especially from the women's side. Like we were just starting to learn how to do tricks at that point. And there was like the Shannon Dunns, who was like a huge mentor of mine later in life, but like she was my major inspiration. You know, I had her poster on the wall. She did Nagano Olympics in 98. And that was just like my draw. Was like, whoa, like women can do this. And having that kind of motivation. And then also I just always was part of like riding with the guys was always something I just felt natural, because there weren't that many girls. And so having like a posse that would be down for anything, and they would like it was never a limitation. It was like, how much can we push ourselves? Like there was just so much expansion at that time that I was like, I'm just going to do this because I love it. It wasn't because I wanted it to be my thing until after I went to nationals. I think seeing all of these other women and like getting first at nationals at USASA Nationals was like, yeah, you know, like showing up. It was Waterville Valley was my first.
What? Yeah. You got first? Wow, props. That's like, big shouts. It was like a 2 mile, 2 mile wide mini pipe with like 8 foot walls. And but really, like that was like my introduction to seeing how many other women were in the sport at our age, and it was so eye opening. Yeah.
And I think being at Waterville, like being a young teenager and being exposed to the grenade crew, like just, I felt like I grew up with snowboarding, and those were my people.
Cool. So where did your career go from there?
So when I got home from Waterville, I think somebody gave me the tip to like make a sponsor me video.
Yes.
And so I made a sponsor me video, and you can see my style in that video. It's pretty great. Just hair in the ponytail, goggles under the strap. Hair, my ponytail over the strap. And I made a sponsor me video, and I worked at Totally Board, which is like a snowboard shop in Truckee. That was my first job. And being a woman at the retail side, too, was like super unique because I didn't even feel like people should trust me setting up their boards and decks because I was like still trying to figure it out. But it was also awesome when I kind of got the feel for it because it was like guys would walk in and I would be able to tell them all about all the gear. And it just made me feel like empowered to be part of the sport. I was selling the brands, but Totally Board told me that I could look through their whole list of contacts, like all the reps, and just send. This is probably so not kosher now. Like that was probably not allowed. But so I just sent a sponsor me video to like 8 different brands. And it ended up being Shannon Dunn calling me and saying, hey, we're going to be up at Boreal. I got your sponsor me video. Like maybe we could take a couple runs. And it was just like having your dream inspiration call you directly because of this video that I sent that I never expected to be watched. Like, I think that was such a treasured time in the industry because there was no YouTube. There was no way to get seen unless you were doing well in contests or creating some kind of footage for brands to find you. But yeah, to have Shannon kind of lean into me and say like, hey, I believe in you. Why don't you try this out? And she got me on Velvet and Burton. And that was like super confident. It just gave me so much confidence because I was like, maybe this is something. Maybe I can be somebody like Shannon.
That's like
legendary.
I feel like that's like being drafted by, pardon my inability to make sports references, but like by Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? Like Shannon, big shouts to Shannon.
Yeah.
She is so, that's a definitely air horn moment. I can't talk. But, she's done so much. I just can't even imagine when you have someone on your wall in the poster and then all of a sudden they're like, come ride with me, come, join these sponsors. That's an unbelievable moment.
I feel like she was like my first mentor without even realizing that she was a mentor. She saw something that I don't feel like anybody else would have seen. And just that little bit of opportunity and belief in me is why I'm here.
Cool. So how did it go when you linked up and rode?
I think I was so scared, I don't know the exact details. It's kind of all clouded together, but I think it was like Shannon was shooting at Boreal at night with Blotto and Chaka from Burton. More air horns for them. They're like legendary people.
Yeah, love those guys.
Blotto has been such a stand-up guy through so many of the things that Chris and I have had to navigate. So, he's awesome. But it's so being on the chair with those people and like being this little 15-year-old, not knowing what I was in for, just so scared. Like, okay, I want to make sure I know how to turn, but I want to hit the jump. And like I wanted to show up, but I didn't want to like be cocky. I didn't want to like try to do anything. I just wanted to like be there and see how our vibe matched.
Seemed like it worked out. You mentioned Blotto. We happen to have a guest question from Blotto. This question is presented by Hippies. If you don't know what they are, we got some on set somewhere here, but they are made sustainably with chickpeas. They got new Flavor Blast Puffs. They come in Blazing Hot and White Cheddar Explosion, and they're available at hippies.com or Amazon. And if you go to hippies.com, use promo code BOMBHOLE, you'll get 20% off your order at Hippies. But let's get into this guest question from none other than Dean Blotto Gray. Here we go.
What's good, Bombhole? What's happening, Bombhole listeners? Blotto here calling in. Kimmy, hyped you're in the booth. Hey, I got a question for you, and maybe you could expand on it a little bit. When we used to go out partying back in the day and the night would wear on and your alter ego would come out, tell us a little bit about her, would you? All right. Later, guys.
Oh, Blotto, I love you so much. Thank you for calling in. The alter ego, yes. Kelly Clark and I had this joke between each other where she was the TM at night and I was the TM in the day. And it was great. Like sometimes if I drank too much, it would not end well and I would fall asleep. And she would always make sure I got back to the hotel room. And the alter ego's name was Kendall. And Yeah. It got real. And
Not the alter ego.
Yeah,
not my alter ego.
the alter ego.
They are fully their own individual.
The shift. Yeah.
Like a werewolf
Exactly.
coming out.
Exactly. A couple drinks deep, and then, the night would just fade quickly, and I would have to call Kelly in the morning and be like, thanks again for getting me home.
Cool. So we're on Burton, we're on Velvet. Where are we going from here? What are things looking like?
That's a great question. So I think I started competing in like Triple Crowns and being at Sierra at Tahoe. And that was actually that was my introduction to boarding for breast cancer as well. They would do their like music events down there. And that's when I started like competing against Tara and Jana. And that was just wild. Like it was in that early stage of like crazy grenade parties at big events and having to show up at the big air jump, and like not really feeling like I was ready, but like having the opportunity to be there and you're like included in these pro contests. And so trying to make sure I could do tricks, but I broke off a lot. Like I hurt my back, I compressed a few vertebrae. My mom was always like my champion. She would show up at all the contests and she always made me like work for it. She would say, I'll be anywhere, but like you sign up, like you tell me where it is, when it is. Cause she never really wanted to hand things over to me. She wanted me to make sure that it was the path I was choosing, not something that she was trying to force. And yeah, so she really made me like work for it. But so I started doing some pro contests and I think I did Triple Crowns and then eventually got into X Games and then eventually do tour. And that was just such a wild time because I didn't feel like I got too much time to really focus on learning about how to do all the tricks. It was just like experiment. Every time I dropped into a course, it was like, okay, well, I really like hitting big jumps, but I just don't know how to piece it all together.
During that time, I think without the advent of social media and stuff, it feels like so different coming up in snowboarding because you didn't have the opportunity to say, oh, what's going on in Europe or what's going on in another state even without having some link to it or, watching the movie when it came out the following fall. Being in this nucleus and coming up and, the combination of meeting these people that you had seen on screen or in the magazines and then, traveling to these contests, did you feel like it was this like, consolidation of kind of snowboard awareness? And what was your learning like in just by doing during that time?
So much learning. My gosh, like I'm an only child. And so I hadn't really been exposed to too much that my mom really raised me to be super independent. So I was super planned and organized. And I think the thing that I learned really quickly with snowboarding is like a plan is not, you can't have a plan. And that goes for even driving out to contests. I think one of the first contests that I did the big road trip on my own was out to Colorado and it was at Breckenridge. And I got there and I like drove 13 hours straight by myself. And I think I had just broke my pelvis in Mammoth and didn't know about it. It was like, they missed it on the x-ray. So I'm like sitting on a donut in the car and I'm like going to go and ride half pipe. And because I could like strap into my board with my feet as long as I was strapped in. And like I couldn't hit jumps because of how I felt landing, but I could ride the pipe.
This is our first hint at like your superhuman pain threshold. Like that is crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. I think I was like riding the Mammoth Park and I overshot a jump and landed on my butt and broke my pelvis.
Oh my God.
I didn't find out for like 3 weeks that it was actually broken. And
only the fulcrum for your, entire body.
Yeah. And I was like, there's no way I'm missing this contest. And I like roll into Breck and I realized my reservation was for the wrong week at the hotel. And then they were booked. And I just felt like I was like crumbling. I was like, but I'm so on it. Like, how does this happen? And I think just snowboarding really started to teach me to like let go of the rigidness of what I thought I had to have. And it just allowed me to have like a little bit more fun and space. And obviously there was so much exposure to partying and like that a little bit older generation, like there was just, the wheels were kind of falling off because there was no Instagram. Like there was nothing to keep you accountable.
Yes.
And so I definitely partied way harder than I should have. And, you know, I had a lot of influence in a unfortunate way at home, you know, like my dad was an alcoholic. So it was just like, I think I was trying to like cover up so much of my trauma and using that and trying not to be nervous. And so I would drink to like protect myself in a way, even though it was super not helpful. But like, yeah, I think snowboarding just kind of, it felt like family. It felt like a group of people that, you know, we were still kind of rebellious, and I liked that feeling of kind of doing things that weren't just by the book. And I could be I could get straight A's in school, but then have this other side that felt a little wild and mischievous. And I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, that makes, you're as you're becoming an adult, getting this opportunity to like push yourself, push your boundaries, test the waters, you know, make mistakes. And yeah, that's huge.
Also, getting like blacked out at that point almost felt like a rite of passage too.
Yeah.
You're just like, this is what we do. What do you mean?
I think there was like a rock star feeling, you know, being a part of any snowboarding gathering. It was you were full throttle, I feel like, in all aspects.
Yeah, there's just, we were exposed to so much at an early age. And I wouldn't change it for the world, but I like, even looking at my kids now, I'm like, oh man, like that's such a scary, like that's scary.
Yeah.
Because like I want them to make good decisions, and I want them to like know their body and know that like they don't need to do those things to fit in. And yet I think we have to live and learn. And so I felt like that was so much of what snowboarding was at that time. It was so experimental. Like you could learn new tricks, you could get broke off, you would just like fight to get back on your board because you're like, but this thing, like I can't get enough of it. Like I don't care how hard it hurts me. Like I'm going to come back to it. And that's wild.
All right, we're going to talk about Arbor. I like what Arbor's got going on these days. They're doing big things. So Arbor has been making high-performance snowboards for nearly 30 years with a little thing called craftsmanship, and they do it with a conscience. These guys were on the sustainability tip long before it was cool, using real wood top sheets, eco-friendly materials, and giving a damn about the mountains and the planet. They're backed by one of the sickest teams out there. We're talking Jared Elston, a.k.a. Big Air Jer, Mary Francois, Red Gerard, who just won an X Games gold, Brian Iguchi, Danny Cass, and many others. Arbor Snowboarding is resetting the standard, blending high performance and sustainability with precision, power, and purpose. So whether you're straight lining like a psycho or going full dummy in the park, Arbor's got A-grade boards and bindings that you need to ride your best. So check out Arbor. They got a lot of cool stuff going on. All right, we're going to talk about a little thing called splitboarding, specifically splitboard bindings. And Spark R&D is the leader in splitboard bindings. Designed and manufactured in the USA by actual splitboarders, these bindings are built to handle everything from deep powder to sketchy ridgelines with ease. Since 2006, they've been dedicated to pushing innovation in splitboarding, designing and manufacturing top-tier gear right at the base of the Bridger Mountains in Bozeman, Montana. These award-winning bindings boast superior performance with their Tesla T1 system. Transitions are fast, smooth, and hassle-free, so you can spend less time fumbling with gear and more time charging lines. It's true. It is a quick transition. Now, whether you're touring for that perfect couloir or just getting after some untouched mom or dad turns, Spark R&D has your back. So hit up sparkrnd.com, get dialed in, and get after it. Because in the backcountry, reliability isn't optional, it's everything. All right, people, Bombhole is going to summer camp, and we want to bring you with us. It's going to be a good time. Summer camp isn't just for the kids. New this summer, Woodward Copper is offering summer camp for adults. There's 2 weeks, one over Memorial Day weekend and one in August. Ours is 8:10 to 8:15, so come on through. It's going to be a good time. Come progress on real snow. Whether you're new to park riding or intermediate/advanced, we have all the features and coaches to get you to the next level. Adult Week is for ages 18 plus and includes on-snow access, coaching, lunch, video review sessions, and more. We're talking barn sessions. It's going to be a good time chucking into the airbag. And you can learn more at coppercolorado.com. So use promo code BOMBHOLE, all lowercase. That's promo code BOMBHOLE, one word, all lowercase, for $150 off your Adult Week session. I'd like to change gears too, because you're a mom now, and I'm going to keep referencing the Butterfly in a Blizzard, your new film. But the one thing that really was hammered home in that is your mom is just such a total badass, incredible human. And I'd just love to hear you maybe tee up. Oh, let's go super air horn. Let me find that thing. Well, that's the megaphone. Hang on.
I like that. Too.
Megaphone's
like
not
that.
bad.
Yeah, it sounds like voice of God.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But yeah, maybe just the shout out to your mom.
Judy Fasani.
Yes. Big shouts, big love.
Yeah. My mom was such a superhero. She raised me as a single mom. She was a OR nurse, so she saw a lot of people get broke off, and I was one of them. And she just had so much compassion, and she gave me so much space to really develop the way I wanted to be. Like, she wasn't trying to guide me in a specific way, obviously, like trying to keep me. I think one of her best sayings was like, keep it between the ditches, you know, like.
That's really good. That sounds like a good ski bum.
Yeah.
Saying.
And, you know, she like wanted to make sure that I had freedom to make mistakes, but also so I didn't really make bad decisions. And she always just wanted to be on the mountain. So that was rad, because she was like seeing me nurture something that was like the reason she moved to Tahoe. And she would show up at contests and just be so supportive. Like, she was so proud. And she was an amazing woman that really had to lean into like being independent and doing it all and encouraging me. I think having a powerful, empowering woman like that just made me feel like I didn't have to always fit in. And she just gave me this mindset that we are so capable of doing everything. It just really takes hard work. And like, if you want something, you really have to dedicate time to get it.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Yeah, she's a special lady. And in the movie, it's just like my mom, as we become parents, I really realized how much my mom did, and by herself. And I think it's important to like pay homage to all the moms and all the parent figures out there that really take care of us and support us, because it's their guidance that kind of gives us this nudge of belief. And for me, like having such a superhero, even now, like when I get into a hard situation, I'm like, it's okay. Like, put our mind to it, and like we can do anything we want.
Yeah.
Seems like she was really, ahead of her time. Not that this stuff didn't exist, but in terms of just kind of being present and having a meditation practice, and that's all really inspiring as well.
Yeah. So a funny story about like the whole meditation thing is like she would usually meditate twice a day. She would meditate for like an hour or 30 minutes in the morning. And so sometimes I would wake up and I'd come down and she would just be chilling in a chair, and I would just know like, it's cool. It's like just her time to be silent. But then later in my life, she started doing silent meditation retreats, and her and I in 2008 got to go to India. And that was just such an incredible experience to see her kind of like pull me in this direction of enjoying nature and like being able to embrace it for something that was so much bigger and like so healing. And there was so much connection, and like being in the mountains in India and watching her. I stayed for a couple days while she started her practice at this meditation retreat, and just watching like how she was able to go inward to work on herself. And like when she was stressed, like she would go inward to try to like work on herself. I'd never really been exposed to like therapy, but I saw her using meditation as her therapy. And even now, like when I'm out in the mountains, I feel like that is my meditation, you know, like being able to connect and like the time that we spend out there. There's so much intention. And I've taken a lot of what I might not have seen as valuable my whole childhood of her meditating is like so helpful now.
Cool. Well, one thing I just wanted to talk about too is like last night we went to dinner. We had a great chat about life. My wife Britt and Chip, our baby boy, was there. But you were sharing the story about being at your mom's house and how she has like wind chimes all over the place. And I've been thinking about that since, and like the intentional thought behind that. So I think it's fascinating if you want to tee up on that.
Yeah. So my mom also had this unique practice. There was a few things, but one of them, like she would hang wind chimes right in the direct path that you would walk in her house, like right at the bottom of the stairs, in a hallway, and like in the corner of her bedroom. And for me growing up, like I had to go through her bedroom to get to a bathroom. And in the middle of the night, I would like hit the wind chime and be like, sorry, Mom. But her practice with that was when you hit the wind chime, it means that you need to slow down because you're moving too quickly. Like if your awareness can't even see something that you know is there, you know, it's just like this practice of like slowing down. And she always had this thing of taking 3 deep breaths. And even now, like when my family or friends of hers come up, it's like, you just pause and take 3 deep breaths while you're giving a hug. Like that was her practice. But I loved that she had this idea of like awareness. And she would even have it with specific cars driving on the road. Like if she saw one of these specific cars, I think it was like an Element or something, she would have to do the same thing because it was like bringing presence wherever she was. And man, I just wish I could have like given her the credit for how awesome that was. Now, it was super annoying growing up in that house. But it was so awesome now thinking about it.
I think it's fascinating. Like we got in the studio, we got lights, and I smack my head on these things everywhere I go. But it's a good reminder when you're like running into stuff or whatever. Oh, I'm moving a little too fast.
Yeah.
Simmer down a little bit.
Yeah, just like we were saying, slow is smooth, smooth is slow. Like bringing that intention, like even now, you know, like I think there's so much, it's so helpful to be able to have some type of practice where it's like, no, like when I feel chaotic and I get that way, how can we slow ourselves down to be able to like realize that this moment is actually the most important?
Yeah. There was a story, if I remember correctly, about you and her going to Burning Man.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my mom was actually initially diagnosed with cancer, like a blood cancer, 5 days before Chris and I got married in 2011. And she kept it pretty under the wraps. And she didn't really want anybody to know because she didn't want people to be worried or anything. But from the moment that she got diagnosed, she just kind of pivoted in the things that she wanted to do. And because she had been a nurse for so long, one of her goals was to go to Burning Man. And so not only did she go to Burning Man, but she was a nurse at Burning Man.
Oh, I didn't know.
And that's like how she got her tickets. And she did it for 3 years. And the 3rd year that she went was her 70th birthday. And so I went with her for her 70th birthday. And my mom was there for like 10 days. My mom had always had Westphalia vans while I was growing up. And that's kind of how we would travel. She loved camping and kind of road tripping. And so she would bring her Westphalia to Burning Man. And I mean, the dust is like, it's real. And my mom would just like, the van door would be open, even in the dust storms. She didn't care. We had these pop-up tents and she had a bucket of water and that's how we would wash our hair. And she got showers because she was working for the event and I didn't. And we had a like shower system set up. But I was there for 6 days and I was sleeping in the back of Chris's truck. He had a Tundra and I got a soft top. And like some days you just want to escape that. But so my mom told me, she's like, get a volunteer job at Arctica, which is like the ice shed. And it was so awesome because I would be able to work 3 hours at the ice shed right in the hottest part of the day and like help out and like you're doing a service. But spending time at Burning Man with my mom just really opened my eyes to the person she was because she had a lot of rules for me growing up that I didn't understand. Like I wasn't allowed to wear makeup. I obviously had to have skirts that were past my fingers. I couldn't dye my hair. It was like she had these really rigid rules that I feel like limited my self-expression. And so going to Burning Man and like seeing her, we would only do from like 5 a.m. until 9 p.m. Like we would shift our hours so that we would only see the sunrise. And that way she could be fresh for her job the next day. And I would go out a couple nights, but it was like being able to walk through that environment and have her be so accepting of everything that you can see there. And also I just saw her let down her guard, you know, being a nurse for so long, knowing her whole community so well. And a lot of it had to be confidential because of her line of work. I just saw her kind of drop her shield and like be whoever she wanted to be. And that was just so rad.
That's a unique moment, I feel like, and I'm sure resonates with both you guys in such a unique way, being parents, but seeing your parents as a human outside and in addition to that role of mom and dad.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's like we were able to be friends and like just experience it and laugh. And like I didn't have to like pretend I didn't see something. You know, it's like we could just experience like whatever. And I think just Burning Man in general has had a really special place for me. And so like her last request before she died was like, make sure I make it back to Burning Man. And so I think it was last year, Chris and I rallied to Burning Man and made sure my mom made it back. So it was really special.
Cool. We got a Patreon question. Shout out to all of our Patreon members that support the show. We really appreciate you guys. Do you have the Patreon questions, Mary? I feel like you are well learned and you can read well. It's the fourth one from Jimmy Doherty.
Yeah, Jimmy Doherty. He says, Jimmy, thank you for sending your question in. He says, my partner suffers from chronic nerve pain in her spine, which keeps her off the mountain. What are your thoughts, Kimmy, on scientific and spiritual healing? Would you share your journey and what's worked for you?
Thank you, Jimmy. That question gives me the chills. It's so, it's really hard to not have access to the mountain, and especially because of something that's painful. And I just, you know, through the course of a lot of injuries that I've had, I had one injury where I drifted off a park jump and was off snow for about a year. And mentally, like even my doctors were like, you should probably think this is the end of your career. And that was in 2012. I did so much reading, and there's a couple of books, and one of them is called Be Like Water, and the other one is called Thinking Body, Dancing Mind. And it really just gives you these tools on how to be present and to just take it one day at a time, and whatever you can do, like the can'ts, when we can't do something, sometimes that feels like the most overpowering limitation. But what I learned from having to sit, and even when I went through cancer, was like, what can I do? Like I might not be able to go on my board, but like I could go outside and just listen to the wind. I could hear the birds. I could connect by sitting out on my porch and soaking up sunshine, finding the ways that we can do something rather than leaning into the negatives and hoping that drives like the energy field in the positive direction. Has always been really helpful for me. But I think everybody is different, but really like finding a way to stay in tune with what makes you happy, even if it's not the way it used to be.
You know, building off of that, I think that in snowboarding, and when you're working as an athlete in snowboarding, there's so much of your identity that is a part of that. And I mean, different stages in your life. Like you were saying, when you were younger, it was how you found the sense of belonging. The idea of just being a snowboarder is so fundamental to, you know, our lives. But then when you have the mountains taken away from you, whether it's injury or when you were going through cancer, you know, how did you grapple with that part of feeling of yourself and identity?
For so long, I think I thought like, I don't need it. Like I can do this. I can do hard things. You know, all these, I tried to tell myself like the positive side of it all. And definitely when I was going through cancer, like injuries are one thing because it was an action that I did on my snowboard to create it or most of the time. And all I wanted to do was get back on my board. You know, it was like, how quick can I recover from this so that I can get back to this thing that I love? But when I got diagnosed with cancer, you know, I'd already been, at that point, like becoming a mom and learning how to balance my time and realizing that it kind of felt hard to get out on the mountain with the intention that I used to have. And then having my second baby, you know, like I was only 9 months postpartum when I got diagnosed. So I was just starting that season with this optimistic mind of like, oh, cool, like I'll be able to show up again. And that diagnosis really rocked my world in a way where it was so unexpected, even though both my parents have died from cancer. You know, it felt unreasonable. I was like, I don't want to die. I don't want to go through that. I didn't think that starting a family would lead me to that. And you're already like so vulnerable because you like have these two little things that like need you. And so like that diagnosis, like I had to be so strong because I was a mom. And I didn't feel strong, but the days that I could get on the mountain were like so life-giving. And I've told this story a lot, but there was one moment that was like so impactful, and it was Justin Eels called me and he FaceTimed me, and I wasn't expecting a FaceTime, you know, and he called me from the Rutherford parking lot with a huge crew, like Haley Langland, Zoe, Benfer, Gabe, maybe Mikey. Like there was a big posse there. Blatt was there. And it led, like, I think as soon as I saw his face and everybody, I started bawling. I was like sitting on the couch with Zepp, and I was not feeling good. I think I had just got out of treatment, and I was like back home. And it was probably like my third treatment in, or second or third treatment in. And I just remember like, I felt so disconnected from snowboarding. I felt like, in a way, it was like I had almost been forgotten. And he reminded me, like, I needed it. I needed the people. I needed the community. And I will never, ever forget how that made me feel, because it was just, he didn't have to call. But it reminded me how important it is to call. If you're thinking of somebody, like, call them, because you don't know. You don't know how down they are. And even if somebody pops into your mind, like, send them a text. It might be the universe just saying, like, this person needs you. And from that day forward, like, I remember running downstairs and telling Chris, like, oh my gosh, like, I was just like sobbing. And I was like, I need snowboarding. I need to find a way to like be back out there. And it was a great reminder of like how when we show up for people, they'll show up for you. And it just brought like such a beautiful realization to my life. And then that's when Chris like did this crazy super master plan of getting me to bald face without me knowing.
This story.
Okay, might as well keep this going.
This is a great story.
So, sorry. So my last treatment, I basically, so with my cancer diagnosis, like I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, and my doctor really encouraged me to stay flat. So I was going to have a double mastectomy, and I wasn't going to have reconstruction. And so I had this desire to like be in a bathing suit in a tropical place one last time, you know, like show off my boobs. And I like knew I didn't really have the energy. During my cancer treatment, I was like losing 10 pounds every 3 weeks, and I would have just a little bit of time. And it was really because of a lack of appetite, and I couldn't drink water. So it was like really, really hard. And to anybody that is going through cancer, like I see you. It's so hard. It's a battle, and like dig deep, because we got this. But so that was like my dream. I wanted to go on this like tropical vacation, and I told Chris, and he starts like looking into it. And so I leave for my last treatment, and he lets me pack. He lets me pack for me and the boys for a tropical vacation. Right? Mm-hmm. And I go on my last treatment, and Mary, you were down there. Donna from Burton totally has had my back forever. Donna, I love you. Thank you. Big air horn for her because
Big air horn.
she has made so much happen and stood with me through so many things. But so Donna tricked me. She kept me down at the beach while I was just finishing my last treatment, which is hard because I had 2 kids at home and I really wanted to go back. I would spend a week at the beach every time I would go through treatment and then come back kind of like when I was feeling my worst, but it was also so that I could do all of the appointments, the follow-ups and stuff while I was there. But Donna like convinces me we're going to do a girls' dinner, like a big group dinner. Shannon Dunn was there, Mary was there. It was awesome.
Just buying time. Like this was like she can't leave yet. We've got to make this a thing.
Yeah. And so Donna offers to bring me back to Mammoth. And she said like she was on her way home. And so we get to Mammoth, I get off the plane, and like George actually fell asleep in the back of the plane, and he told me later, like, I just couldn't even talk to you because I didn't want to give away the secret. Love George too, he's amazing. And so we get into the airport at Mammoth, and Chris, the boys, and Chris's mom are all standing there, and Chris just drops the news that like, oh, we're getting back on the plane and we're actually going to Baldface. And JP at Baldface had agreed to let me bring the whole family, and we were going to go snowboarding, and it was like where Donna and Jake used to bring their Olympic team back from riding at the Olympics, and they would go and ride POW just to remind them of like the fun of snowboarding. And so like a lot of the team was going to be there, and I couldn't even cry because I was like so shocked, and I was also so scared because like, Chris, how I packed for summer. Like, how are you even gonna have all the things? And like, what about the kids? Like, no offense, Chris, but like, you haven't even ever packed for the kids. I'm like, I think there was so many questions in my head of like, he would have never known what to bring, like never in a million years. And to show up there, and I like on the plane, I was like asking Chris, like, did you bring my knee brace? Like, did you? And he was just I was so proud of him because he brought me to a place where I didn't even think, to be completely transparent, like each treatment, especially at this specific time frame, like directly after my treatment, whatever, it's 5 days after, I could not leave the couch. I could not go from the couch to the bathroom without pooping my pants. And that's so graphic, but I want this to be very clear. Like, cancer is so gnarly. The treatment is so gnarly. I could physically not make it to the bathroom. And so I was isolated indoors for about 2 weeks. And not knowing if I was even going to be able to, like, snowboard. I'd only been snowboarding maybe 5 times that whole 6 months. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to sit in the cat and like not have to go to the bathroom. And it was like this, so many unknowns. But the beauty of it is when we showed up at Baldface, the next morning, like the first morning we went out, I rode from after our Abby briefing, like from 9 until we were done, till 3:30 or 4, no issues. It was almost like I was plugged into my energy source and nothing else mattered. Like my body was like, it's cool. Like this is our happy place. We're going to let you do this as much as you can. By the 3rd day, I was not sore. I was not tired. Like it was like I was my alter ego. It was like I was this alias again, coming back into the mountains and being like, nothing else matters. That is a different part of my life that is no longer even existent. I felt like I was in a dream, and it just, that trip to Baldface, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Donna, because it just totally changed my mental health. I was so down and out. I never thought I was going to be able to be back on my snowboard in that way or back with my community. And it reminded me that we can do anything. Like anything that we truly passionately want to do, it just takes a perspective shift. And coming out of that, I was like, oh my gosh, like that was the weakest I was ever going to be. And I did that. Now I can do anything.
Wow. We have a tissue sponsor for the bum hole. Could we get one?
Kleenex on board.
God, that was so
That's
dope.
amazing.
Incredible story.
What a calling back to your movie, I'm sure we'll talk about more. There's that idea of the spiral. And I feel like it's like coming back to your place of healing. That's just so magical.
Yeah. And the movie that we've been making it's called Butterfly in a Blizzard, and it's been spanned over 8 years. So the movie started to be filmed while I was pregnant. And so if you think of that period of time, there's so much that we learn through the course of our life, and so much of that was documented for this film organically, that it really does bring this like picture of this spiral of like how we grow, and we can see our growth, and we can see like how we learn and how we overcome and how we become more resilient. And it's so empowering because, and I think that's with any challenge. It's with any loss. It's with any struggle, any injury. It's so easy to think we're never going to get better. But when we take it one day at a time and then we chart back, like I look back a month and I'm like, whoa, like I'm feeling stronger. But when we get sucked into this microcosm of like how stressful or sad it feels in that moment, it can feel so overwhelming. But like, yes, it's like this evolution. And I feel like when we can take things, the mountains have really become this like tool set for me that have helped me through so many life's challenges, because those big slogs, those death-defying jumps, those crazy lines that you ride and like you have to learn the hard way. Maybe you fall, you get broken, or you tomahawk down like I've done very gracefully. Those were all choices. It's like you're choosing these lines, you're choosing to progress. But when we have these life challenges, sometimes we're like, God, like that feels so unfair. And yet if we can shift our perspective and be like, okay, but like I did all of this on the mountain and that was hard. I can do this too. It's like becomes such like a mirrored set of tools that I'm just so grateful for, because it really does like give you the ability to see your progression, whether it's from injury or on snowboard.
That's beautifully put. Yeah, the spiral, the way you explained it at dinner last night, I like that. Like the one that really stood out to me too, when you're talking about, okay, you have your first child and you're here in your life's path, and then a few years later, you have kind of a similar, we'll call it a challenge, that's not a good word, but you're faced with some adversity, but you're at this different place where you've got a new set of tools and you've evolved as a human and you're equipped to take on, which was even a much heavier challenge for you, obviously, given the circumstances.
Yeah, and I mean, that's also like for me personally, like having my first child and anybody that has their first child, like there's such a huge learning curve, it feels super scary. Like there's so much that you don't know, and you're like, everything's trial by error. And so you go through all of that. And then when I had my second child, it was like, oh, like this doesn't feel as hard because you're already used to the sleep deprivation, and there was so much more comfort in it because you've been through it once. It's kind of like hitting the jump the first time. When you guinea the jump, it's super scary. But like when you hit it the second time, you're like, cool, like
Great
I've got
analogy.
it.
Yeah,
Great
that is
analogy.
really good.
But that's it. Like I feel like that is like going back to Jimmy's question, it's like how we can use what we've learned in life and like experience the same tools that we can apply from being on the mountains, because it really is, it's like, it's such an amazing set of tools that we have learned that can help us through anything.
Absolutely. Yeah. Going back to the jump analogy too, while we're at it, it's like hitting the jump, it's standing at the top of the jump is scary. Once you're going towards the thing, it's actually not that scary. It's dropping in.
Mm-hmm.
It's the getting to drop in. That one I see translating into life all the time, where you're like, yeah, you just go towards the freaking, just hit the thing.
Totally.
But thinking about hitting the thing is the scary part.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I have a funny story. So like the year that I did the double backflip in the park at Mammoth had built me this jump specific to do this trick. And it was an overconfident move on my part because I'd actually wanted to do it at Miss Super Park when it was at Copper, I think, or Keystone. Mm-hmm. And I ended up knocking myself out on a drop-in. And so it like led me to believe, okay, not the right time. So Mammoth built me this jump, and it was like the first little park shoot I had hosted with a handful of women there, like Raywyn Reed and Erin Comstock, Kaya Tursky, Christy Leskinen, and Jamie Anderson. It was like an awesome little posse. Yeah. And it was the last day and I still hadn't done it. And I was like, okay, like I had to call that I was doing it. And it put a lot of pressure on me. But like speaking to your point of like dropping in, like I knew I could do it, but it was like physically dropping in and committing and like setting my rotation on the takeoff. And it was like this little step over kind of jump at South Park. And it had a gap, you know, like you were never going to fall in the gap. But it was just like the mind game of like having to have the right song, the first 30 seconds of that song, the wind had to be right, the flags had to be right. And like I would do the trick every other or every 2 jumps because of that. It was like, okay, like did everything feel right at the top? Like, is the wind right? Listening to ourselves, like knowing the speed of the wind, like, am I going to overshoot? Am I going to over-rotate? And it's like that how we can go into ourselves and we know exactly how our body is going to perform in that moment and like trusting it. And I totally agree with you because it was the drop in that was the scariest. But as soon as like everything was in motion, it was like, it's like you channel this mega fighter. Like you just know exactly how to harness your energy of your body to make the thing come around.
And you've made the decision. It's like you have to go with it because you've chosen your path and you have to act on it.
Burn your boat situation. All right, we're going to take a break and talk about onX Maps. If you're venturing into the backcountry, you need onX Backcountry. onX Backcountry is a GPS mapping app designed to help you explore the backcountry with confidence. That's one of the bigger problems, people getting lost out in those mountains. So with onX Backcountry, you can scope lines like never before by utilizing 3D maps, guidebook route descriptions, and high-quality satellite imagery. You can visualize your perfect run. onX Backcountry gives you the tools to interpret the information you've gotten from an avalanche report into a backcountry tour plan. Access avalanche reports, slope angle, and aspect shading, and their revolutionary avalanche terrain exposure scale layer to help you determine what terrain is best picked for the day and what terrain to be avoided. I think it's really cool how you can look at the mountains and see what aspects are sketchy and which ones are safe. No cell service, no problem. Download the maps before heading out, and you'll have all the tools you need to stay on track, no matter how deep you venture into the backcountry. Don't wait. Download the app today. Save 20% with code BOMBHOLE20. Again, save 20% with code BOMBHOLE20. Ride smarter, safer, and bolder with onX Backcountry and stay safe out in those mountains. Now, do you find yourself slowing down a little bit in your older age? Maybe getting off hill a little earlier? Well, you could be dehydrated. 75% of Americans are dehydrated. And that goes up when you're at elevation, when you're in the mountains. So I drink Bubs Hydrate or Die hydration packets. There's 2,000 milligrams of electrolytes. There's no added sugar. There's no artificial flavors. Let me tell you, when I'm hydrated, I ride better. I can ride longer. I have more energy. All in all, my vitality is just better. So if you're interested in picking up some Bubs Naturals Hydrate or Die, head on over to bubsnaturals.com and use promo code BOMBHOLE for 20% off your order. And stay hydrated, people, with Bubs Naturals Hydrate or Die.
All right, we're going to take a quick intermission here to talk to you about our good friends over at Pub Beer, who just happen to be the official beer of questionable decision-making and cheap fun. That's right. You heard it here first. Whether you're just having a couple, maybe you're watching the game, Pub Beer's a great option. Cheap fun. Maybe you need 50. Did you just get dumped? Pub Beer's got you covered. Cheap fun. Every time. Pub Beer.
Okay, so I really want to dive into Butterfly in a Blizzard, and I just want to start by saying just how in awe of your film I am, my wife is, and just my experience watching it. Like yesterday, I called your husband, Chris, and he's like, you probably know a lot about me after watching the film. And I was like, well, Kimmy told me to watch it with my wife, so I haven't seen it yet. And I'm like, but I probably should watch it before I call you back. So I'm sitting in the office. I put my headphones in. I put it on. And it's just freaking insane, your journey. And I'm literally like waterworks. I'm tearing up. I call my wife once. I'm like, you need to see this thing. I'm like, you should put it on right now. She's like, I can't do that right now. I'm like, okay, watch a little bit longer. And it's all the stuff that we're going through too. Like it's such a perfect, for new parents or, there's so many different people that it's good for. But I call my wife again, second time, like, you really need to watch this. It's really fucking good, you know? And then by the end, you know, with your whole journey of everything with, you know, 2 kids and cancer and just, and your parents and the whole thing and your trauma, like, I get done and I just like, I remember I was also really inspired too. I'm aside from the waterworks, like really inspired, but I closed my computer. I didn't say anything to anybody else here at the office, left my phone, left all my shit. And I just went home and like picked up my baby. I was like, I need to go be with my family right now. And it like, that was the effect that it had on me. And it was just like really, I haven't had like a visceral reaction from a film in a really long time. And then I showed my wife last night and she went through an entire box of Kleenex. Like it was like you were speaking directly to her in something that I don't know has been shared, you know, in the terminology of this, you know, matrescence or whatever it's called. And I just can't commend you enough and like urge all of our listeners to go watch this thing because it's like wildly inspiring. And I hope it's the biggest success of anything. I know it's going to be incredible once people see it.
Thanks, Chris. This movie had an intention at the beginning, and it was right when I'm just going to stop. I'm just going to say we'll go back because the experience that you have watching it, you know, not really knowing what happens behind closed doors, even for me and Chris, I think it's really easy for everybody to see, and we know this, like social media paints this image that everything is butterflies and rainbows. But I think it's really important that we show the opposite. We need to show that life is hard. There's a lot of big decisions. We go through a lot of challenges, and it's not easy to navigate. And this movie, we didn't set out to make the movie that it became. In the very beginning, we thought that we were going to make a movie about 2 professional athletes traveling the world, becoming new parents, and like that privileged lens. And now that it's been 8 years of making, you know, and I apologize to all my sponsors who year after year, like, when is this movie coming out? But it just took a lot of time because we wanted to do it the right way. We self-funded it. We wanted to tell an organic, authentic story that hopefully people could see themselves in a way that makes people feel less alone and supported and positively impacted. And I mean, I just hope that anybody that watches this film can hold a little bit of space for the vulnerability that it took to put our lives out there. And at the same time, like, if we could all just lean into our connection points instead of like the hate and divisiveness, I think we would see we have so much more in common than we think we do. And this film was really a journey for us as well, because becoming parents and, like, for me, fighting for the verbiage in my contracts to change so that I could become a parent and not be scared that I was going to get dropped by my brands was really the motivation 8 years ago when I was pregnant with our first one to start filming. And that totally transpired in a way. Now I look at the industry and we have a handful of women who are moms. And even like watching X Games, like watching Cassie Sharp, the skier, win halfpipe with an 8-month-old. You know, it's like things are changing. And I really hope that this movie helps the whole world see that, like, our one voice, each of us has a voice. And if we use it in a way that feels authentic and empowering to shift a narrative or to stand up for something, like, we can make change happen. And it's like believing and like feeling safe to share our opinions is really important, because if I would not have stood up to try to change my contracts, I don't know if things would have changed. And I don't want to take any credit because there's so many women in this industry that have shown me that this is possible. But it's really like this film and the evolution of it leans into a lot of hard, tricky topics. And it also is a very candid look at our family and our personal life. And every time I hear feedback like this, especially from people that don't know all the details of our life, it just creates the validation that hopefully together, like, we can share more of the hard and also be more supportive of each other as we go through these big transitions, because they're real. And like this movie is about matrescence, which is this transformation from woman to mom. And I would even go as far as saying all parents, transitioning from being an individual to having a child, or bringing up, whether it's fostered kids or adopted kids, or however, it doesn't have to be a biological passing of having the child. It's that transmission of becoming a caretaker, taking care of people and a little one. There is a magical transformation that happens, and it's not necessarily easy. And I don't feel like it does get talked about. And it needs to be a lens that we see and like we recognize that it can be hard and that there's a lot of emotion that goes behind it. And it's a relearning of how to balance. And I'm so excited for this movie to come out, especially because it's been such a long journey and it is extremely nerve-wracking as well.
One quote you have in there, it says, I think the specialist talking about matrescence says it's an invitation to step into your depth. I like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like becoming a mom, making this movie has created so much healing in my life. And even if that was the only benefit, selfishly, that would be a gift in itself. But it's like it has invited me into the deepest, darkest parts of myself. It has allowed me to relearn how to heal my own traumas from my childhood and also help my children not be passed down in the generational conditioning of our parents. And nothing is wrong with how our parents raised us because they did the best they could as well. And I think that's like a very important thing when we hold anger against our parents. And I don't want to be too general because there are so many other circumstances that this could not be true to. But I think it allows us to hold space for our parents and the mistakes they may have made, because it's hard. And it's like trial and error. You're learning as you go. And especially when big things are thrown at you, whether it's injuries or, like Koa having kidney failure. Like there was so much that I was trying to accept. At the same time, I was lost. And I was dealing with so much postpartum stuff that I feel like when people watch this movie, I just want them to see a glimpse of themselves in one of the pillars that this movie touches. And hopefully we can share this movie again and again and again so that other people can also feel like a little bit of comfort knowing they're not alone.
I think, to me, watching the movie, my experience was rooted on an airplane, just wondering if the person next to me was like, why is this girl crying so much while she's watching this? It's so impactful and it's so moving. And I think it's also important to mention that while the fulcrum of this movie is, your and Chris's transition into becoming parents, you can be at any life stage and could have kids that are grown up. You could never have had kids and not even be wanting to have kids in your life. And still this movie, like you said, there's so many pillars that it is so resonant in so many different ways because you touch on a myriad of topics that I think every one of them is something we don't talk enough about in society, like at all, whether it's, traumatic events in childhood, child abuse, going through cancer, becoming a mom, becoming a parent, gender roles in terms of athleticism and household, and grief. It really is this human experience piece. And something that you said to me while you were making this movie has really become something I repeat to myself a lot while going through things. And I think it really pertains to when you're watching this movie as a viewer. And I remember, I don't know what year it was, but it was in the middle of the filming. And you said that, I'm going to butcher it, you said it much more eloquently, but I remember that you said that at one point you thought that if dealing with a challenge in life was like a giant wave, you thought that if you just got over that wave, the ocean would be calm after. and what the series of events in your family's life and in your life going on during the filming, it was you learn that no, there's always going to be another wave that's going to come. The ocean doesn't get calm like that, but every wave that you go through, you learn something so that the next wave you're able to approach and handle and overcome it with more ease.
I think you said it really, really eloquently.
That was really eloquent. I don't know what you're talking about. You just nailed it.
Yeah,
well, I got it from the source.
And like going back to the airplane crying, I think that's just altitude. Let's just blame it on altitude.
I don't know.
I cried during every movie.
Me too.
On the plane.
I'm like, why am I crying right now? This is no, but I mean, it's so true. I think like this movie, it's like such a deep dive, and it's like so candid. And it really does like capture like that, all of these challenges, like they hit one after the next. You know, it was like our introduction to parenthood. Like here we thought we were going to like be traveling the world and doing all these things, which we did. But there was also like so much life handed to us that just felt like so fast and intense that all we could do was survive. And like, how do you survive if you're always in a panic state? It's really, it's terrifying to be in that state. So trying to find like that positive or that silver thread, not because I always need to be optimistic, but it's like my survival technique. Like if I allowed all of the things that have happened in my life to become the weight, like I would sink to the bottom really quick. And that happens. That's happened to our friends, you know? And the thing that I think is so important is like what people expected me to make in a movie, it's not that. So like lower your expectations and like go into this with an open mind. It's not a snowboard movie. It's a very personal story. And like you said, Mary, it is. It's like riding the waves, you know, and allowing these experiences that we've had to not be our downfall, but like our elevator of growth and evolution and expansion of our own mind. Because when we can overcome a challenge, that becomes our next starting block. And it's like, I think of it as climbing a mountain or doing the hardest thing I've ever done on a snowboard. You know, like my absinthe part for After Forever, like it was absolutely terrifying being in that heli with Nicholas and Manuel. And did I ever say that to them? Probably not. But like probably the scariest experience on my snowboard, just to be like, can I actually do this? And like getting out of that heli and standing at the top of some of these lines that hadn't been rode for 5 years. And now it's like game time. And I'm like, I am the rookie. Like I'm so out of my comfort zone. But doing it and watching myself achieve these little micro goals of like, okay, I did that run. I can step it up a little. It's like these building blocks. And that's like how I think of life's challenges as well, because every time you do a run on the mountain, it's an experience that you can take with you for the next run. Mm-hmm. Oh, you fell on your back five. All right. So now I know what to do different to land it. And I feel like if I have in my mind, it works that way where I think I compartmentalize and I compare, okay, I've done this on my snowboard, I can do this in life. And every time I step up on that building block, it's like that next wave can go and come, and I don't feel like it's as catastrophic. And mind you, every challenge still feels hard, and it doesn't feel like something I want to do. And I don't like when I'm told like, oh my gosh, you're so strong. It's like, I don't want to be strong. I don't want to have to be stronger, but like that's how life conditions us. It allows us to grow and expand. And if we allow this energy to transfer into an empowering energy, where same with on the mountain, like if I can harness my fear and like believe in myself, it allows me to do things that I never thought I could. But if I suffocate myself in fear, then it's never going to feel like I can overcome anything. So yeah, like we can do hard things and we can overcome. It's just really mindset and hard work.
God, she's good.
I know.
She's good.
I'm in the zone. You guys are asking great questions.
I have a follow-up question. Where do you go to dig deep when it feels like there's nowhere else to dig from?
Great question.
Whether it's in the mountains or in life, just, you know.
Yeah, I cry a lot. Yeah, I think crying's really part of my release because I allow myself to go into like the depths of like why I feel isolated or alone or why it feels scary. Like, and really, thankfully, like I'd never talked to a therapist until I came out of my treatment. And I got somebody recommended to me, Jenna Holgate. I'm going to blow her up because she is just such a gift. She has really helped me change like how I approach my mind. Being able to have somebody to talk to that isn't my husband, that doesn't have to carry the load like my partner, just gives me a little bit of space to like let it all out. But otherwise, it's really like I will step outside and like I have this meditation with the sunshine where if I'm feeling like I can't deal, whether it's my kids are melting down or I just feel like I'm in this crazy chaos of managing life and getting this movie out or whatever, I'll like step outside and try to like let the sunshine fill my gas tank, like fill my tank. And I picture my body as like this mechanism that gets filled up by light. And it also allows me to like release the negative energy that's still stagnant in my body. And so to answer the question, I think it's really like meditation and self-work to know that nothing is too big, even though sometimes it feels that way. And it's just a matter of either finding the person you can talk to, finding the outlet for your body that you can go to, or finding something that is a release, whether that's moving your body or like, I don't know. I think that there's just this alter dimension that we can go to where it's like a belief in our capability and our purpose on this earth. Like, what is our purpose? What am I supposed to learn? And how can I pay it forward? Because I am such a big believer that the challenges I've been through would be so much harder if I didn't have other people that had walked it before me. And if I can pass down some information, like even through this film of like what it looked like for me, maybe other people can see that and be inspired to push harder and like to overcome whatever they're challenged by, because that's what I had. You know, when I got diagnosed with breast cancer and was told like, you're going to go flat, you're not going to have reconstruction, I didn't know if I could do that. Like, women were supposed to have boobs, and now I'm going to shave my head. I'm going to have a flat chest forever. Like, who am I? Snowboarding, to me, like every campaign that I was part of for ads and whatever, it was like I had to have my hair long in a side braid, and like that was part of my image. To not have hair and like to still show up and feel like I could be myself. Like, I don't like the wrinkles on my forehead. And now I'm going to have a shaved head. Like, I have no way of hiding any of my flaws. And I also am going to have a flat chest. Like, that's really exposing. And it feels so terrifying. And I personally was able to just look at other women that had gone through it and been like, okay, like this does not define me. What does define me is the good that I can pay forward. What does define me is how great of a mom I can be, how great of a wife I can be, how I can take care of other people, how I can show up on my snowboard. Like, my looks do not matter, even though we're so stuck to this image of like self-preservation for ego, you know?
I want to validate what you're saying so much just there, because I think that you are not a person that is like, you're not a shallow image, like you're not an image person like that, but it affects every woman and guys too, in a way that I do not have that experience, of course. But like, you know, I feel like, or I imagine that going through that process, you probably weren't like, I'm, you know, obsessed with my boobs before this happened, but then using them as food as a mom, and then all of a sudden having them taken away and having your hair taken away, probably illuminated you to this aspect of self and kind of woman identity that I can imagine was not wholly unique in that moment.
Yeah, I think otherwise it would have felt suffocating. You know, if I would have let myself get stuck in like everything I was losing, it would have felt like I lost myself.
Yeah.
Because so much of what we identify as is potentially how we look.
Yeah.
And being able to also show my children that, you know what, instead of waiting until my hair falls out, I'm actually going to shave my head. And I want you guys to be part of it. And thankfully, Chris joined me. And it was this very empowering moment of like taking control of a situation I felt like I had no agency over. And even with staying flat, like if I was a 20-year-old single girl, like I don't think I would have stayed flat because that would have been part of how I met my partner or whatever. Like, I don't know, because that wasn't my story. But for me, it was like, I was so grateful that I had been able to experience breastfeeding and having kids. And my breast did not need to be part of my body anymore as part of my self-image. Yeah. I felt very grateful that my partner accepts my body the way it is and doesn't make me feel like I need breasts to feel beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think it's this transition of mindset of being like, okay, like this is going to be hard. How can I manage it in a way that gives me the power to become a better version of myself?
Yeah. I have one more follow-up. Sorry, Chris, is that okay?
I like listening.
Okay. Because I think this is an important conversation. And I guess earlier, like when I say shallow is not even the right word. I just mean like, you know, I think that fashion and hair and all those things, like props to everyone that's good at it. I am terrible at it, but it really is a part of our identity. And I think that if you loop this back onto the layers of life and coming up as a woman in snowboarding and so many ways that you need to ascribe to be one of the guys and, you know, the idea, there's so many layers to it. There's the idea of, you know, women athletes, you know, in the aughts and early 2010s saying, I don't want a lifestyle photo. I want an action photo in my ad, like really advocating to be seen as athletes, the athlete model aspects of, you know, Instagram and all these just different things. And then, so I think grappling with things like, these are my markers of, you know, of my identity in a way that that's a really unique thing. And I think anyone, and I know you said this before, anyone that is like, I do want to do a reconstruction, I do XYZ, everyone's journey is totally correct for what is their journey and wonderful. But it's such a thing that I think until you have to think about it, it's something almost, I think we all take for granted.
Oh, 100%. And I think that there's so much depth into exploring that, like what it even feels like to have to make those decisions. And I think in snowboarding too, like we've gone through so many growth spurts of how we supply opportunity for the women in this industry. And it's come a long way. And I think speaking up and really advocating for all of us to be supported based on our action and, yes, like the lifestyle component is part of it, but being able to like own our bodies and be appreciative of all the different styles of humans that we are only elevates the sport. It's more inclusive when we can be authentic and original. And I really don't like that the industry tries to put us in these boxes of competition riders, rail riders, like backcountry riders. Like, no, we are riders and we are self-exploring what it feels like to progress in totally different directions, and nobody needs to be the same. And just because your contest riders are the ones that are getting all the props on TV, it doesn't mean that they have the highest value. Yes, they do. But like, if we enable everybody's story to be heard, I think the relatability of this industry would go tenfold across to so many more people because it's authenticity that brought us all together. You know, it's the fringe. It's this side hustle of why we love the sport. It's when you give each other a high five when you're on the mountain because it's that connectedness. Like, we don't need to fit inside a box. We need to be outside that box, and it's like a beautiful dance when we can all be ourselves and when we all feel like we can use our voice to make the industry better. So yes, like owning our image, but also being able to change and expand and grow into these people that are evolved is also awesome.
Whew. Yeah.
She's spitting bars over here. I love it. Going back to the film, one thing I thought was really interesting is, and I think societally it's just a bigger topic too, but the emphasis on the elder mothers and the knowledge that they have, I found fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, all of us, we've been through this journey where we've heard things, and it's just our influences. It doesn't necessarily just have to be our parents. It's like the people that came before us and like spoke over us and believed in us and entrusted their passion in us or their interest in us, whether it's fishing or skating or, there's so many different ways that we've been able to experience life, and nobody's path is the same. And being able to know like what my mom gave me, and now I'm taking it a little further. And that's kind of something that's mentioned in the movie. Like, I don't have to do everything perfect. It's like I'm just trying to push the envelope a little bit more and leaning into our passions. Because when we're passionate about something, it actually, I feel like, moves the needle, because you can really advocate for something that you believe in, and it becomes an action, not just blank words.
That's amazing. Another topic too that you came up, we talked about last night. I'm just going to rewind for a quick second. And I love how you talked about being in the heli with Nicholas Mueller, and that year you got Rider of the Year, but you're popping off avalanches. It's gnarly, and equating that to life's challenges. Both are terrifying. For example, your son's kidney failure, and I don't think there's anything scarier than that. But I would love for you to elaborate on some of the divine timing that we discussed at dinner last night and how things unfolded.
Yeah, there's, I have found that as we take life kind of day by day, sometimes things lead to another. And I can't exactly remember how we talked about it last night, to the specifics. Is there like
the kid? I guess the timing of being on the boat with your son.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in this film, like I've said, like it's like a trial by error situation, and we were learning a lot as we went. But one of the big moments in this film is, really me finding my connectedness to the mountains, and the mountains are so far away from a baby, and I didn't see my peers, like professional surfers, tennis players, soccer players, whatever, dealing with the same mental load that I felt like I was dealing with, or at least it wasn't being talked about, because I felt like, how am I going to be so far away when mountains, you're out of service, you have to be so micro-focused on your performance so that you don't mess up. And that was really impossible for me until I got on this trip where we went to the Arctic, and we were hiking these couloirs, and it would take us 2 hours to hike up and 10 minutes to ride down. So I felt like, oh my gosh, this is totally possible. Like, this is what I need. I need my baby closer so that I can be focused on my job and not feel scared for him. But then flash forward, 6 months, and he goes into kidney failure when I was up in Revelstoke. And I was just so incredibly grateful that it wasn't on the boat, where I was. There was no way that his life would have been saved if his kidney failure happened on the boat. And so it's the irony of life, like the silver, or like the hindsight is always wild to reflect on. And this movie, because we filmed so much, like you see it all unfold, and it's intense. And I am just grateful that I was kind of handed these cards that were hard, but not like worst case scenario. And that even goes to like my mom. My mom died on the 28th of January. And 2 years after she died, I broke my wrist on that same day in Japan. And I felt like there was this deep connection to that day where it didn't feel scary, but it was like, fuck, like I don't want that to happen again. Like I don't want bad things to happen on this day, because it was already a hard day to like reminisce. And like revisit, but it was almost like a reminder that like when these hard things were happening, she was there with me. And on the day that Koa got diagnosed with kidney failure, I was by myself. Chris was on a trip, and I had Koa and our nanny up in Canada because I was supposed to be filming for the Burton movie. And I had spent one day with the crew and then came home and realized like, oh no, like he is not well. And I went to a clinic, and that was also on the date of January 28th. So it was like just a little nudge of, I could have looked at it as like a negative omen, which I will be honest, I have. And so I try to change like what that day feels like now. But it was also really comforting knowing like, I just hope like she is here with me because we were so close to losing our son because we had to be medevaced and it was so unknown, like what that process would be like. And I felt so selfish making this choice to stay on my snowboard. Like I was trying to film, and yet in some ways it felt like I was jeopardizing him and his health. And it was like that tug of war of like, fuck, am I making the right decisions? Like, why am I hitting so much resistance? And yet there was like comfort to it because the days that it was happening, it felt like at least I was kind of being guided where it felt a little safer.
Yeah. Goddamn legend, Kimmy. That's all I got.
If you love sending it in the Eastern Sierras, whether it's snowboarding, climbing, biking, or any of the countless ways to get after it, you know that keeping your body strong is key to staying out there longer and doing what you love. That's why there's a gym called Paradox Fitness, a 24-hour gym in Bishop, California, designed for people who live to enjoy the outdoors. Whether you're up at dawn for first tracks or squeezing in a late night session after a long day in the mountains, you get 24/7 access right from your smart device. The founder is a snowboarder herself, and she knows firsthand staying strong off the mountain makes all the difference on the mountain. No one wants to be the person sitting on the couch watching instead of riding. So if you want to keep sending it all season long, go check out Paradox Fitness in Bishop, California. Get stronger, ride longer, and keep doing what you love. Sign up today to get instant access. No waiting, no hassle, just training on your schedule. Plus, our listeners can get 50% off a day pass when they use the QR code on the Bombhole website to sign up.
Okay, people, we're talking about Sunny G's sunglasses. We're talking about the Smith Optics hook set Sunny G. And this is my daily driver. I had to go get this thing from my center console of my truck. It was smudged, and they're still holding up strong. They're polarized, not Polaroized. Don't get it confused. And it's just a good pair of sunglasses. When you look good, you feel good, and life is just good. So if you want to look good and feel good, get the Smith Hook Set sunglass, and you can do that at smithoptics.com. And we got a special offer for you guys. If you use promo code BOMBHOLE15, it'll take 15% off your first order. Again, BOMBHOLE15 at smithoptics.com. Save yourself some dough. All right, folks, if you love coffee, listen up. I love chugging coffee, specifically on a cold winter day. I don't know if there's anything better. So we got the Yeti 34-ounce French press in front of me here, and it is a weapon. Picture this. You're up at the mountain. It's a cold day. It's snowing. Actually, it's not snowing. It's bluebird, but it's frigid. You're in Saskatoon or you're in Winnipeg. It's absolutely blistering cold. What's better than a hot cup of coffee? You can get yourself this French press, and it steals in heat like nothing I've ever seen before. You guys know Yeti products. You make a hot cup of coffee in one of their mugs, it's going to stay hot for a long time. Same goes for this Yeti French press. It's got this plunger technology. I don't know how it works, but it seals in the heat really well. You want to be a hit at the tailgate when you're at the resort? Pick up the Yeti 34-ounce French press, and you'll be the belle of the ball. We have so much more to talk about with the film, but I kind of want to just change gears for a quick second and go back into snowboarding, just bounce around here. We happen to have a guest question from none other than Devin Walsh. Here we go.
Hey, Kimmy. Hope you're well. Stoked to hear you're on the bomb hole. Tell a few stories about when you came up and stayed with us in Whistler. We did all that snowmobiling. I often think about those times. It was really fun. I hope you're good, and looking forward to hear the show when it comes out.
Wow. The man, the myth. Devin, thank you so much. Devin changed the landscape of my career. And, him and Ika really embraced this desire I had to switch from riding park to the backcountry. And same with Nick Olson at DC. I was on DC and I had this major shift where I actually sprained both ankles in early December, and it took me out of doing Dew Tour and X Games. And I just kept getting hurt. And I think Nick, been big shout out to Nick Olson, because he really gave me this chance to step into this other realm that most women hadn't been given the chance, especially women that had not podiumed and like created a credible career in contest performance. And I was one of those. Like I choked every contest, big contest I got into, and I never made finals. And I could have been kind of brushed under the rug and kind of tried to find a new career, and instead he gave me this opportunity, and I presented this opportunity to Bridges as like a writing experiment in the magazine of, hey, like Devin and Ika have said that I can come and film with them for the season. I think it was like 40 days. I moved up to Whistler, and let's write an article about, like, it was called The Disciple of Descent. And
wow, that's a great title.
Thank you, Bridges. But Devin let me stay in his house, and he had just had a baby, actually. His first daughter was maybe a year old-ish. So they would always kind of be coming in and out of the house. And Devin and Ika really let me learn how to navigate the mountains in a way that felt progressive. Like I would hit all the jumps that they were hitting with them. I would build all the jumps with them. He is such a godfather of our sport. And like his movie part in Resistance was really my lifesaver when I was 16 years old. It came out in 2000, and I listened to that song and like that video part so much. And I was so impressed that he filmed a video part in 6 days. And then I spent like 3 days in the backcountry with him, and I was like, oh, I mean, you could film a video part in 1 day. He's so good, and he's so incredibly patient and knowledgeable, and he's so calm. And it was just incredible, like to be able to hit a jump with him and have him like give me a high five at the bottom. I felt like it was like that next evolution of like, you know, Shannon Dunn was this mentor, and then all of a sudden I'm now riding with like this other incredibly legendary rider that's giving me and believing in me and giving me opportunity to be the best version of myself that I can be. And I feel like that season is what created the longevity of my career. Because if nobody would have let me do that, I would have been gone. And yet they said, hey, try this other path. And it was those guys saying, we want you to be part of our crew. That made me feel like I could be confident to make mistakes. And I think that's really scary as a woman in this industry. You know, like I don't want to go out with a crew and feel like if I mess up once, they're going to kick me off the crew. And that happens all the time. Like I feel that pressure every time I go out, you know, like, and Devin and Ika never really made me feel that way. And we had this joke because I could not turn my sled left.
Little Zoolander.
Seriously,
sled
like I would be
action.
like standing on the seat, and I could not. And I remember this one time, I think we were out at Brandywine, and there was this big left traverse, and they made it to the top, and I was still like, I could not get across this left traverse. So I had to keep dropping back down and like coming up, and Devin ended up coming down and like doing it for me and like showing me how to do it. And it was just the patience. Devin, you are such a legend. I hope you and your family are great. And thank you for so much of what you guys have been able to provide for my career.
I love it. That kind of leads me to a topic about that era. It seems like it's evolved since then, but it seemed like it was almost like there's only room for one girl or no girls on the crew. Where do you think we're at now versus then? Are we in a good place? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
There was a long time where it was one girl per crew and even one girl on the team. You know, the tokenism felt scary, felt really competitive. It put a lot of us against each other, even though we wanted to be friends. It just made you feel like you had to hold your position really strong. And now, you know, I love looking around the industry and just seeing like not only how many women are being supported, which there can always be more, but there's also this friendship amongst the women, you know, like being at Natural Selection and watching Haley, Elena, me, there's like this bond now rather than this. Of course, there's still competition, but it's like you can be out with your friends filming and you don't have to vie for that one spot. You can push each other. And I also want to lean into the fact that Leanne Pelosi was the creator of that movement. You know, she brought so many of us up under her wing and never made us feel like we were threatening her position. She gave us opportunity, and I watch her now as a mom, and I'm just so grateful because it's because of women like her that I feel like I have a place in this industry. Wow. And then I look at people like Haley Langland and Zoe pushing the envelope and like watching them film with the men. And I'm so inspired because I really hope that the younger generation in our industry never feel like they don't have a place. And I think our industry just needs to keep including women and providing opportunity for women, because that one opportunity can change their whole career. And it's about that one person believing in them. And that comes to men too, you know, like if men see a woman that's like ripping, like tell her she's ripping and like say, hey, do you want to ride? Like, and ask like, hey, if you ever need a mentor, I'm here for you. Because if we can lean on each other, men and women, all people should be able to ask each other for help. And that mentorship means so much, you know, and that goes into like, I even look at like what Mikkel and Ben Ferguson and Mikey Renz have done for me. And like they believed in me and they let me have a place on the crew that didn't feel like it was conditional. It was like an unconditional place on the crew, and they could deal with my emotions. You know, they were with me when my mom was really sick. They had been with me through a lot of things. Like when Koa was sick, that's who I was filming with. And they had so much grace, and it made me feel like I didn't have to show up to prove myself. I could be myself, and I could still like make mistakes. And I think that's awesome. And I'm so happy with how far we've come.
I think that's really when we can do our best, is when we feel comfortable to make mistakes, because you can't push the boundaries without failing. You can't go further if you're not willing to be able to fall. And being surrounded by people that are gonna allow that is really something absolutely special.
Yeah, that's a good segue into like amusement park, right?
Yeah.
And the reasons behind that.
Yeah, amusement park. That was a fun kind of evolution. So basically that year that I learned how to do the double backflip, so that was 2012 spring, I learned how to do a double backflip in the park at Mammoth. And that was like the first little group of women I had at this private focus shoot. But then that coming winter in December, I actually drifted off a park jump and did my ACL, MCL, PCL, broke my pelvis, and was really told that I was going to have to shift my career and that I was not going to be able to snowboard the way that I used to. It was just like a very complex injury, and thankfully that was all that happened. But in my downtime, instead of, yes, there was a lot of self-pity and there was a lot of darkness in that recovery, not knowing if I would ever be able to get back on my board the same way, I decided to create an event that would help women progress without the pressure of a contest. Because I feel like our progression had really been hindered by the fact that there was no inclusive events that didn't make us feel like we had to perform. I wanted women to come together and say like, hey, I really want to learn this trick. Like, this is a safe space. And it also created like an opportunity for women to get editorial coverage and video footage that they could use for whatever they wanted, and they would get in the magazines. So I just wanted to create a platform for women to feel like they had support and could be seen on the outside of a contest environment. And so that went on for about 4 years. The first year was this crazy, insane jump that TJ Dawood built on the backside of Mammoth. I think it was supposed to be 70 feet, and he made it 90 feet. And, you know, Spencer O'Brien showed up and Jenny Jones showed up. And there were so many amazing women that made that jump look so effortless. And I think it was the biggest jump that those ladies had ever hit. And that wasn't necessarily my intention, like, let's make the biggest jump. I wanted to make like something fun and progressive. But I also thought that was like a really cool stepping stone for them, because they totally shined. And if you talk to Spencer O'Brien, I think she'll still say like that was one of the most fun jumps that she's hit. And then from then on, I kind of made it like a smaller, more playful event where and it wasn't just women, like we had men riding, but I really wanted the focus to be on the elevation of women in editorial and video and progression. And then as my desires changed and kind of shifted to the backcountry, I was like, well, I don't really want to be the one that's showing up to Guinea this jump to like show the girls like they can do it. So I transformed that event into Amusement Mountain, which became an expedited learning curve for women in the backcountry. Kind of same motivation, was like, hey, it's taken me 8 years to learn the things that I've learned in the backcountry. What if we do like a focused week of line selection, how to navigate the terrain, how to set up your gear, how to read terrain from the top and bottom, and just make these women feel empowered in their avalanche awareness. Like we would do an Avi 1 course at the beginning of the year and then regroup in the spring to really see how they had learned how to apply that knowledge and take it into the backcountry, because I wanted to be able to show them, like, this wasn't about me. I wanted these women to feel like they could join a crew and be a valuable member in their own mind. Like, I want them to be able to navigate this terrain the same way their counterparts are and feel confident to speak up about the avalanche safety and not feel like they have a muted voice because other people have more knowledge. So yeah, it was like this big kind of whirlwind of trying to create events that would just propel women snowboarding.
I think worth noting too that through the Amusement Mountain event, I mean, it's like Caitlin Farrington, Kelly Clark, Desiree,
Elena,
Steffi, Mary Rand. I mean, so many. Myself, I went through that first year. It was amazing. And it really was a vehicle for people's first steps, literally, in the backcountry. It was incredible.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm so grateful that people said yes. Like they didn't have to come. It was like something that I wanted to offer. But I even look at like the evolution now of how many women's events are going on and how much progression is happening, and also how many women it is seeding into our industry. And whether it's uninvited or the R&D event, it's like it's showing that there are so many more women than we even know by bringing this next generation into the spotlight and giving them this little hand up where it's just, we're not doing the work for them. We're just putting the spotlight on them for the rest of the industry to see that we're capable.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like noticing as a dude that doesn't think about this stuff too, it seems like women really thrive in those environments where there's not like some alpha male like chucking that's like, it's like more women empowering women. And they like, whether it's learning how to ride a dirt bike, I see all these women's dirt bike camps, or what you do, or, uninvited, there is this like really cool, like women empowering women movement. That's incredible.
Yeah. And I think it's also like it adds to our value to then join whatever crew we can.
Yep.
Because then it gives us the confidence to be like, cool, like now I know the ropes. And I even think that there was a huge shift. Like I watched Danny Davis's Peace Park shift from being only men to then including women. And I'm like, it just brings like this friendship and like this bond between us all. And like the amount of progression that happens when we all get to ride together is awesome. Yeah, it's like something really important.
And it is, I think, really cool to mention that, because I completely agree with everything that you've just said. I think it's huge, and we see it now in this fruition with the Uninvited, with Grace's Getaway, with R&D, with all these different elements of women's snowboarding, just creating this these multiple platforms for women to just explode. But I think also, on counterpoint, is like back then in the late aughts, early 2010s, and I mean even all of the aughts, I guess, we were still swimming upstream in a lot of respects to have women-specific events, not only, from funding or things like that, but because there was elements where women's snowboarding was kind of a dirty word, where it was like, okay, we're simultaneously advocating to have more women on teams, to get more opportunity, to get into the backcountry, to have women's the counterpart to men's disciplines at events. But if you say women's snowboarding, it kind of feels like a lesser than. So it's like events like Amusement Park and Amusement Mountain and Ms. Super Park and what Leanne was doing with the movies and Too Hard and all these things were almost like a reclaiming of our role. I don't want to overstep what that is, but I think that's a really important cultural fulcrum point for that time.
Yeah, and just like how much of a grind it was to actually get the support.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm just going to throw it out there. Like it back then, like thankfully Mammoth Mountain has supported me for so long, and they have like believed in these visions that I've had, so they've worked closely with me. But like to build a park jump, you figure, I mean, in that time frame, it was like around $30,000 to build one park jump. And I would maybe get $10,000 from my sponsors. And so there was like a huge deficit of support that I did not have in the brands that were supporting me, that like I couldn't make that up. Like I couldn't, but it was so important to me to do it that I would find any way. And I would look at my counterparts spend 6 figures on like this elaborate setup, you know, and be like, gosh, like, can't we invest equally? Like, what if we split that money? Like, what if we put the attention in both pots and we could do this together, where it would make me feel valued, and it would also make these women feel valued, because I could put together more of a park than just one jump, you know? But that was like part of the learning curve, and what we were fighting for was like, let's rise these tides together so that people know we're serious, and like make this something that doesn't escape the industry. And I think that there was a huge shift in the industry at that time too, where there was a lot of women that started getting dropped, and it became one on a team again. And I think there was budget cuts, you know, like going through 2008, like there was a big shift economically. But I even look at it today, and it's like, I look at Rampage, and like this year watching the women drop into Rampage and hearing the feedback from that, and just watching these women that are so incredibly inspiring, believe in themselves, and like do the sickest lines, and watching. And I hope that their peers were like up there supporting them, asking them how they could help, or if they wanted help. Because to me, those women have been fighting for that position in Rampage for so long. And to watch them just totally succeed this year, like that is a new threshold. And that's what I see happening in snowboarding too. It's like, as we step into this place of giving opportunity to women, there are more women. And it's just so inspiring, because ultimately that leads to motherhood. And motherhood, you want to feel like you have a place in a spot, in a space that feels safe. And if these moms have ever been snowboarders, and as they transition to have kids, like we want to invite them back in too. So I think that's like the next step for our industry, is how can we include more family dynamic? And it doesn't have to take away from the core. But we need to include more family dynamic, because all of us are getting older. At least us old heads, you know?
That's like cool. That's cool.
And it's cool, and it's fun. And it's like,
I think that's cool.
We need to be able to evolve as well, but I don't think we lose our marketability. And I think we're losing.
Not at all.
We need to remember that as a collective industry. And I'm going to harp on this one more time. It's like, if we include this verbiage for athletes to become parents, that is out there. It's online. If you go to andmother.org, you can see verbiage that you can add to these contracts that makes it possible for athletes to become parents. And then, so now you're supporting your athletes. So now you're creating your investment in these athletes, and it's like employee retention, right? And then not only are you doing that, but then you're including those people that are on the outside looking in, wondering if they can bring their family to the mountains. So it's like huge pivot of like, you don't have to lose the core, but like, don't forget about the people that are on the outside looking in, wondering and trying to figure out how to bring their family to the mountains.
We were talking about it yesterday. I mean, so we're at dinner, and you guys are discussing how much gear little children need and babies need. And if we really want to talk, I mean, my business acumen, that's not my strength, but if we really want to talk about dollars and cents, it's like, if you have a kid and you want them to be snowboarding, they're going to need a lot of gear from the ages of 5 to 18 when they're done growing. That seems like a positive thing, I guess, right? I mean, that's not my strength, but
Yeah, and I think about it, if you think about snowboarding back in the day, it was so new. We're like kind of the first, second generation snowboarders that are having kids that snowboard. All of our parents, for the most part, people my age, that snowboarding didn't exist. My dad, he skied, and that was all he knew about. And so now, being older parents, there's second generation. You look at Cannon Cummins, like look at how there's where you look at surfing and all these other places and skateboarding, and there's like Riley Hawk. There's the second generations coming, but we're kind of the forefront of the second generation snowboarders. And I think back in the day it was like you only sponsor people that are 18 to 24 because we're only talking to kids because it's this brand new thing, right? But now there's adults that are still enjoying it because it's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I'm proud to say I'm 40 years old and still have sponsors, and I have 2 kids, and I'm learning how to be impactful in ways that might not be on my snowboard making a video part, but I really hope that like people see that I am an opportunity. I'm not a limitation. And I think like the more we show that we of all ages are able to step into this environment and like be supportive and drive these marketing campaigns, not just for the core rider, but also to the families, and make the products that are great for families getting on the mountain. It's just going to make the industry grow more and feel more inclusive.
Yeah. And isn't it good if we invite the families into the core, because the parents are very likely, they could be part of the core, then their kids are going to learn this awesome foundation of the history, the culture, these things that we all love and share about snowboarding in this open, beautiful way, and help us grow and help that flourish so much.
Absolutely. And I think as we get older, what inspires us changes. When I was 18, I just wanted to watch JP Walker go down a kink rail. And I was just like, that's it. But now I watch videos of Kimmy and Chris, and they got the kid in the backpack, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to do that someday. They're killing it being parents. Or I watch like Louif, Louif does a really good job snowboarding with his kids. And I find more inspiration from that as I get older. Still love the front board on the kink. Let's be clear about that. That's still fire. But I want to just kind of change gears for one quick second and talk about just pump your tires on the fact that like if you look at snowboarding right now, specifically with the women that are coming up, I've heard women come on this show and their experience isn't that of like feeling excluded or having a claw. Like they feel included, and I credit a lot of that to you guys paving the way and going through it and beating your chest when, quite frankly, not everybody's listening, and if you look at it now, like just watching X Games, you got Mia Brooks doing cab 14s, and it looks like she took a tranquilizer dart to the neck in the middle of the, it's just, she's asleep at the wheel. You got Iris Pham, you got Chloe Kim, you got Jalen Hansen. Like, I'm watching it, I'm just like, I am freaking yelling at the TV because I'm so inspired. And I think a big credit is that of the work that you guys have put in to pave that road.
So what you're saying, Chris, actually leads us into a great Patreon question from Cake Pound Crew, which is a great username. Because I think it's Pound Cake. I don't know, maybe has another younger...
he's got his own crew, Cake Pound Crew. Check it out. He's a legend.
Super sick.
Yep.
I don't know if it's a Gen Z thing that I don't understand, but I like desserts. So he asks, you were a real barrier breaker for women's snowboarding, Kimmy. What's the most valuable lesson you would want to teach the women's youth today coming up in snowboarding?
Ooh, great question. Thank you, Cake Pound Crew. My biggest advice is to really lean into your authenticity. It's so easy to get lost in the shadows of what you feel like you should be and what you can be. And the path that you want to go on. And like lean into that and be your individual self, because as I've gotten older and as I've learned to speak up, it has been so rewarding to see the benefits of just my one voice and how it can make a positive impact. And, for a long time, I thought that I needed to be a contest rider and win contests in order to have any type of career. But I think now, if you work hard and you show that you have a strong work ethic, like this isn't just a walk in the park, and I think that goes for anybody in snowboarding. It's like when you're coming up in this sport, it's not going to be nothing is going to be handed to you easily. You still have to work hard, but it's finding the outlet that speaks to you and pursuing it with all of your heart, because that passion is what's going to make you successful. And then also realizing that any relationship, any connection you have in this sport, like, be kind and pay it forward, because you don't know how the people that walk through your life or those influences will come back around. And when you're able to keep positive relationships with people, like without burning bridges, there's obviously time and place for things to fall apart, but keep your relationship strong, because there's always a way that those people come back into your life and can positively impact the next generation. And then on the other side, it's just really making sure that, like, you're doing what you love, because when you do what you love, it's going to show on your snowboard.
She's good.
Yeah.
She's good.
Yeah.
I think, like, those girls that are watching the sport, maybe interested in pursuing it, what they're seeing now is that girls that are 16, 18, 21, 40 have a place in this sport. And ultimately, that is what we want. We want everybody to see themselves in this sport and not feel like we get priced out or sized out or even aged out. Because when I was growing up in this sport, women were lying about their age to be able to hold relevance. And there was also, models being used in my place. And I think that sends a bad image to those girls coming up, that our beauty is more important than our action. And what I love that's happening now is that it's being highlighted that we all have this amazing ability to do this sport, and it doesn't really matter what we look like. And those young girls, like, are being influenced by the Zoes and the Mias and the Irises. And it's so empowering because they see themselves. And I watched the X Games with my kids, and like, they know some of these girls, but otherwise they're just like so inspired and impressed. It doesn't matter if it's the men or women anymore. Like, the riding level is so incredibly high that it is giving that younger generation this aspiration that they can push themselves too.
Straight up. Great points. You are freaking nailing it, Kimmy. I would like to talk about you still at this point in the conversation. One topic that we need to talk about is your absinthe part.
Yes.
After Forever, Rider of the Year. What was your mentality going into that?
Do you want the transparent side of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What we're here for.
I'm going to hold a little space for this. And okay, so going into that video part for the maybe 3 years leading up to it, I had left DC and walking away from the DC team. So ironically, it was like all happening right around the time I was getting married. And my contract was up with DC, and Burton had approached me and asked me if I wanted to join the women's team to kind of fill in these very big shoes of Victoria Jalous. And her and Natasha had both stepped off the team that year. And I didn't feel like I was in any capability of like filling shoes, but I thought it was a great opportunity to learn and kind of embrace this backcountry side of my career and join the AK team. And, that meant I had to step back and step away from this investment that Devin and Ika had given me. And I felt like that was really the most challenging decision of my career, was to leave that team and these guys that had given me so much knowledge. And it felt in some ways short-sighted that I was doing this. I know I made a lot of people mad in doing that move. But at the same time, I just felt like it would give me more longevity to be joining a bigger women's team. And Burton was making this move to really support this avenue for me. So it took me, like Devin told me when I left DC, you're never going to have a crew again. And that was hard. I had worked really hard to develop my trust and confidence with those guys, or to earn their confidence and trust in me. And to go to the Burton team, it took me like 3 or 4 years. And so I spent those 3 or 4 years filming with my husband because I just didn't have a crew. I could not get on a film crew. And I didn't have the financial support to hire my own filmer. So I would just go out with Chris, which was awesome, like the Nimbus crew. And he would give all my footage to whoever would take it. And so the season before Absinthe, I gave all my footage to the Trans World movie, Origins. And I think I had 4 or 5 clips in that film. And it wasn't anything groundbreaking, but at least like I still had a presence. And so Justin Hosnick was looking at including a woman in the film. And I actually think him and Bridges talked, and they threw around my name. And so Justin and I were talking, and he really wanted the best woman possible to be the representation of women in his movie. And this was still at a time of 1 woman per film. And I think there was a small conversation that just really put it in perspective for me that like, maybe I wasn't that girl. Like, could I actually hold my own? And that was tricky. I actually ended up saying no because when Justin and I talked, it made it feel like there was too much pressure on me to perform, and I didn't know if I could actually live up to those expectations. So I said no, and then I had this really crazy interaction with these bald eagles. Bald eagles have always been like a special sign for me, and I looked up the symbolism of what these bald eagles may lead me to. And it really said, like, you have to do something hard. You have to step into something that's really uncomfortable. So I called Justin back and I said, I'll do it. And I ended up driving up to Nelson, spending a little bit of time with Nicholas and Austin Sweeten. And then we went to Whistler and just trying to like get the lay of the land. Like, how is this going to feel? But I also knew like I could do this. And now like I was getting the spotlight that I really wanted because I had felt like I had been asking for this. And finally the universe is like, here you go. How are you going to do this? So Justin made it very clear that he would bring me to Alaska with Nicholas and Manuel. And I almost felt like it was like a sandbag move, you know? Like, here, I'm a Burton writer, I have travel budget, and this is all in good keepings with Justin, you know? Like, it just, from my perspective as this girl, like, I had no place being in those mountains with those guys, or at least that's kind of like this internal dialogue I was telling myself. And I think that's like an important detail because I think it's really easy to undermine our own careers when we get in our head and we feel like we're not valuable or like we aren't good enough. And so when I went to Alaska with Nicholas and Manuel, it was the craziest experience because that was my introduction. You know, I had been to Valdez in 2008, but like Nicholas had always been this guy that I like idolized, and the way he rode, and like my husband, he idolized him the way he rode too. Like, he was so influenced by Nicholas's style. And so it's like it's like that next building block, you know, like I've had Shannon, I've had Devin, and now I'm going to Nicholas. And like the grace and the patience he had with me, and just, he never once said, "Are you sure you can do that?" Instead, he was like getting out of the heli with me when I was scared. And he made me feel like I could do it. And like, he never said like, yo, like, we haven't rode these lines and we've been waiting to ride these lines. Like, they were big boy, big girl lines. And because it was my introduction, it became my new starting block. And it gave me this ability to know that I could do hard things, but I also had to learn how to stand up for myself. Like, the day that we set off some avalanches, like that, it was so touchy. And yet I fell into this trap where I feel like many of us do. It's like, it's not pure pressure because nobody was making me do it. It was my self-inflicted pressure of wanting to prove that I could hold my own. And I also was paying for the heli time, and I didn't want that bird flying without me in it. And so I was going to do whatever it took to stay safe, but I was also making risky decisions because I wanted to be part of the crew. And I didn't want to feel like I was the weak one. And I think that's also important in like vulnerability of sharing, because it's like, I don't think that's safe mentally. I don't think it's a safe place to be. And I made some decisions and I learned really quickly that that wasn't my place. You know, if somebody feels safe doing that, we also have to look at our crew and how capable they are of rescuing us, because that film part is the same time frame where Bodie was in his avalanche. And I was there when that happened, and like making these decisions on my own and then watching like the catastrophic avalanche that happened with him, and thankfully he's okay. But like watching that rescue and being part of that rescue was also like that movie, that film part was like so many lessons learned, and thankfully in a way that didn't feel detrimental. And it also allowed me to realize like I was so much more capable of things that I thought I was, and so empowered by these men that had been super supportive, because they really allowed me the space to choose lines. And sometimes it would be the first lines of the day. They would be like, you got that. And Manuel, like the traversing the spines, Manuel was like, you could traverse those spines. Like he gave me that line, even though he would have chose to road it. And it was an incredible year. And I felt so incredibly proud because I worked hard, and like that is the lens that I wanted to be seen in. I felt like I was just hitting my peak when that video part came out. I was like, oh my gosh, like if I did that, I can do anything. And then the universe was like, oh, okay, I'll show you. And it's not going to be on your snowboard.
Before we get into that, though, I wanted to see specifically, it's really powerful, those two AK lines that you drop into and they rip out from underneath. Like, can you walk us through the one that was really rowdy?
Yeah, so that's Birthday Bowl up in Haines, and Nicholas Mueller and I share the same birthday, which is a fun fact. And so Birthday Bowl was like a special place just because it was like, I don't know, he named it on his birthday one year. And so we get there and the conditions are like, the snow is incredible, but there was this really weak instability about 30 cms down. And we knew about it. Those guys dropped in first on the further looker's left side, and it ripped immediately. And I was actually there like at the top. And I was like, there's no way that I could drop into that steep of terrain and actually navigate away from the avalanche. And so I looked back over at this bigger flank, and even though it was big, I had actually previously rode it. And so I had the confidence of knowing what it felt like already. And in full transparency, Nicholas basically walked me through how to navigate an avalanche. And so before I dropped in, we talked about my safe points. We talked about where my exit would be. We talked about like the no-go zone, like where the exposure was, and that they were at the top. If anything happened, they would be able to come down to help. A lot of that was like risk factor, like I'm sitting there like willing to drop in, even though I just watched the other terrain slide. And sure enough, like 4 turns in, I flash back to Travis Rice talking about the Wolverine claws, and I just tapped myself out. I was like, I felt very lucky that I was able to experience it that way, and it was almost like a drill. I felt like I was living the verbal communication of what Nicholas and I just did. It was like practicing your beacon drills and then having the avalanche happen. And it made me also realize how important it was to say no and being okay to say no. Because I could have just said, I'm not going to drop in, you guys. Like, I don't feel safe, and I can let those blades spin, and I'm just going to be comfortable. But I think that comes with age and confidence and a crew that you feel comfortable with using your voice. And so lesson learned, and I really backed off a lot of terrain for that whole next few days because it just didn't feel right. And I think that was a very good inner dialogue that I had to work through, and unfortunately, I was in an avalanche, and fortunately, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. And yet, yeah.
I think it's amazing that you remained on the trip and in those mountains after that. I think that's just facing the environment, I guess, after something like that happens is very, very challenging.
Yeah. And there's something, for me personally, like Alaska has this incredible draw for me. And I want to say I'm not done with it yet, but natural selection really showed me this side of my heart where I was like, it's cool. Like, you can be here now. Like, I would love to go back to Alaska with no cameras and just shred the crap out of it and have like a really fun crew where it's just not documented. And you just like embrace those mountains for all that they are, because there is so much terrain there. It's so empowering, it's scary, and it's so progressive. And I feel like that's like where my heart, that's the only step left in snowboarding that like I just still have this, like, it's on a pedestal.
All right, folks, I had the chance to ride the 2026 Ski-Doo sleds, and these things are unbelievable. They just unleashed their most dominant deep snow lineup yet. We're talking weight reduction across the board, up to 14 pounds less wet weight on the Summit X. Industry first 32-inch ski stance on the Summit X with Expert package. Great for side hilling. I rode this thing. It's nimble. It's incredible. It fits through all the tight tree lines. You can take it on even steeper side hills, and you can explore gnarly new terrain. The free ride is back, taking riders to the extreme. All powered by the proven, reliable Rotax 2-stroke engine. They got the factory-built 850 E-Tech Turbo R. It's 180 horsepower. This baby's a whistle wagon. And they also have the naturally aspirated 850 E-Tech. And Beresford's riding this, the 600R E-Tech. It's unbelievable incentives that we haven't seen from a brand in a long time. You get 4 years of coverage if you pre-order the new 2026 Ski-Doo. It's guaranteed to be the best promo of the year. Spring promo is good through March 31st, 2025. So hit up your local Ski-Doo dealer and get one today. You will not be disappointed. Okay, we're excited. We're excited about a little thing called Snow League. We're talking biggest prize purse in all of snowboarding. $1.5 million is rumored to be the prize purse. And this is going to be a 4-stop points chase where they crown a season-long champion, both male and female. It's head-to-head format, something new and exciting for snowboarding half-pipe competitions. Riders will be dropping in on both sides of the pipe, so you'll get to see varying pipe runs, which is exciting for me. All the heavy hitters are coming out. We're talking Matty Mastro, Ayumu, Valentino Giselli, Lil Kitaki. So the first one is just half pipe, and that is at Aspen Snowmass, March 7th and 8th. And if you want to get tickets, check out thesnowleague.com. If you sign up before February 6th, they'll be free for qualifiers. And then if you sign up for finals before March 1st, the tickets are only $50. It'll be $60 after that. And if you're a Colorado resident, you save 50% before March 1st. So check out thesnowleague.com for your tickets. Also, the event's going to be on Peacock, which is huge for snowboarding. We heard about the broadcasters that are announcing it. Very excited about the broadcasters. And there'll be an encore recap on NBC, snowboarding on NBC, and that'll be in March. So if you want to check out the Snow League, go to @thesnowleague on their social media. Lots of behind-the-scene content. So event 1 will be at Aspen, and then event 2 through 4 are to be determined. So lots of exciting stuff from Snow League. Huge prize purse. Check out thesnowleague.com for more info. Mary, do you know what time of the show it is by any chance?
Is it time for the most stressful part for everyone in the hot seat?
I have anxiety, deep anxiety right now.
Everything in your professional career has culminated in this one moment. Will you get it
ruin
right?
My street cred.
This is big. This is big. All right, listen up, bombhole people. I'm going to talk to you guys about the Grande speaker from Turtlebox that they just sent us. And this thing slaps, dare I say. It's very loud. It's incredible. So it's essentially a bigger, louder, more badass speaker with the same durability as the Gen 2 seen behind me here. It's a 10-inch waterproof woofer versus the 6-inch on the Gen 2. It's got 2 Class D amplifiers and a 1.25-inch waterproof titanium tweeter. And this thing bumps. It's got a maximum volume of 126 decibel, and it's got the brand's signature low distortion outdoor sound. It's got party mode, which allows you to wirelessly sync 100 plus grande speakers together via Bluetooth 5.4. We're talking 100 speakers, all connected. And one thing that I have to say is that the battery lasts forever on these things. Really impressed with the battery life. If you're interested, they are available now for pre-order on turtleboxaudio.com, and they're shipping mid-February. What's your confidence level, Kimmy?
If it's early 2000s, I could be a 4.
Okay.
Out of what? 5?
10.
100. A 4 out of 100.
Okay.
If it's in the last 15 years, then I'm...
Well, let's just see how you do. Here we go.
Only because I'm going to say...
You want to hear it again? Oh, let's just hear this. Maybe something comes. I'm just going to play it again.
I feel like this is a Devon part.
That's correct. That's correct.
Good guess.
Oh
Ding,
my
ding, ding, ding.
gosh. Yes. I mean, he's got that style that when you listen to a song, like you can replay that style.
Oh,
wow. Oh my gosh, the heart pound.
Yep. You got it. It's do you want to say the movie name?
Oh
Do you
my
want to take a
gosh.
shot at it or no?
I don't even know. It's not from one of the Wildcat movies? No.
Well, there's kind of a couple of Wildcats, so
I know. Nope.
I
don't know.
It's True Life.
Oh
True
my
Life.
gosh.
But yeah, you got it right. It was Devin. So Mary's going to bring you your prize pack.
Wow.
Congratulations. We can ship that to you if you don't want to fly, because I know you're flying carry-on.
That's amazing.
Also, there's a Turtlebox speaker too, which we will send you. It'll be a brand new one. This one is out of the box that because we're waiting for them to send them to us. But
True Life, Stand and Deliver, True Life, Resistance, like all of those songs, like Tara in Stand and Deliver. Oh my
so
gosh.
good.
Like, how is it still something that I watch and I'm like, it's like euphoric.
Yep.
You're like, this was so impactful. And all of those early films, like even 411. I remember watching like all the 411 movies on VHS and like rewinding them so many times, being like, I want that. Wow. Oh my gosh. Like the stress. You guys went way too fast into that. That was super stressful. Thanks for the somewhat of a connection to my younger past.
I asked, you can thank Chris Benchetler, your husband, for that, because I said, "What's their wheelhouse? Which direction?" She said, "He said, do a Devon part." I said, "Okay,
Gosh.
all right."
Good job, Kimmy.
Part 2 of Name That Video Part. This is for our listeners. If you know the song, comment on the photo of Kimmy on Instagram. That's where we pick our Name That Video Part winner. All you will get is a sticker that says, I won Name That Video Part, and all I got was this stupid sticker. Don't expect a prize pack like Kimmy got. You will be very disappointed. Okay, here we go. Good luck. Okay.
Oh.
Thank you guys for playing. Do you know it?
I feel like if you had a longer roll on that, I would like have it because that one was another really impactful video part. But I can't place it, so I'm not going to say it.
Okay, there
then
you
I
go.
won't give it away.
Perfect. That works out good.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for playing Name That Video Part. Okay, so just curious, after this absinthe part comes out, you win Rider of the Year. How are you feeling at that point, being the MVP of snowboarding?
Wow. Yeah, like when I was editing that video part, I think there was a really humbling moment where, I want to take back that when Bodhi got into his avalanche, it was actually the next season. It was Turbo Dojo when I was back up in Alaska. Because the summer that we were editing that part, I actually came out here for after Forever. And I was with Shane, like sitting down at the table, and I guess Bodhi had come by and he basically said like that video part was worthy of being Rider of the Year. And I was like so humbled by even just somebody of his caliber watching my footage, knowing that it wasn't perfect, like I tomahawked a lot. I didn't do like the most progressive tricks I tried really hard to do the greatest job I could to represent myself and women snowboarding in that video part, but like have somebody like him who I looked up to, and I think he's such a progressive backcountry rider and rail rider that just really made me feel so validated in what I was capable of. And so when it all actually was coming to fruition, my mom had actually just been diagnosed with cancer. And she had been diagnosed earlier and nobody really knew about that. And then this was like the 5-year mark. And her cancer had mutated into a really fast-growing, it was called large B-cell lymphoma. And in 3 weeks, I watched my mom go from like a functioning human to somebody that couldn't even sit up. Like she was so dizzy, needed to have like an escort with her at all times because she couldn't really walk. And so I had dropped everything to move to Tahoe to live with her. And that was in November of 2016. And like I remember Transworld calling me saying that like they were asking if I could come to the award show. And I said, I'm not going to be able to come. Like my mom's too sick. And I said, the only way that I'm going to be able to come is like, if I won, I know that this would be like the proudest moment for my mom to see. And it was so hard to be in that pendulum of space where I was so incredibly proud of the work I had put into my career because I had finally earned my keep. Like I had finally got to the point and I was being acknowledged for something I always knew I could do. But I needed people to believe in me to get to that level. And the woman that like believed in me the most was dying. And I was so grateful for Transworld because they were so accepting. And I just had to basically be like, I booked a really quick flight in and out. And I remember you handed me the award, like when they announced that I won, I felt like I was like in this ultra dimension and I just had to like let go of all the grief that I was dealing with at home and just like be my bravest self to accept this award on behalf of my mom. Because ultimately, I just didn't think she was going to be alive very long. And if there was anything, I just wanted her to know that it was because of her that I was able to accomplish all of these things because she was the first one to really believe in me and to like push me to believe in myself. So it was like an incredibly proud high and also like the bottom of the barrel low on both sides. And I ended up like my girlfriend, Cara Williamson, who has really been like a stand-up woman in my life through so much. She actually went to my mom's house and showed her the recording when I couldn't be there with her to just like show her that we did this like together. And she died 3 weeks later. But like she even told me before she died, like it's almost like the universe just wanted that moment for us to be able to cherish forever. And then like Justin invited me to film that coming year with them, kind of open-armed, like if it worked, if I felt like it, like if I needed that space to be in the mountains, like that project, that crew, they really like help nurture my healing process by allowing me space to still have a place in one of the most challenging times of my life.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. That was special.
Yeah. If I can give a double thanks for sharing your story of through the movie and just like here with us now about your relationship with your mom and the strength that she imbued in you as her daughter, and talking so openly about the grief. I think, that's something, along with a lot of the other things we've talked about today and that are in Butterfly in a Blizzard, that is just not talked about enough and can feel so isolating. So thank you from the depths of my heart.
Yeah, because you're going through it too. And I mean, it's one of those things that's super sneaky and we feel like we have to mask it. And when we can find an outlet that feels peaceful for ourselves to like express our emotion, or even just to cry and like be okay to cry and like be okay to share the pain with other people. And like we were talking about this last night, Mary, it's like we're not meant to share all of the weight of our challenges isolated by ourselves. Like we have a community surrounding us, and it takes courage to ask for help and to ask for that community to step forward. But I really feel like that was my savior in those moments, was like having people surround me that had space and also compassion and patience to just be and like listen. And if I didn't feel like writing and I was just going to be a mess in my hotel room, like the Absinthe crew, they got it, and they like let me come out on the days that it felt good. And then I would just be a basket case the rest of the time. But just knowing that people were there, it goes back to that Eels phone call, like Justin Eels, like when he did that, it's like, it just reminds you like you're not alone and you don't have to carry it alone. That's why we're all here together.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much in snowboarding, I think, that especially watching the younger generation come up, everyone's so supportive. And because there is significant grief that happens within our sport, with losses of friends and family members in addition to our personal lives. And I just think, as a kind of side note, nod to the next generation coming up, you guys are incredible at coming together. And I think being surrounded by the right people, like you're saying, is the community makes such a big difference in all of our lives. Sorry, that got really...
Yeah, well, and I mean, I just want to throw it out to like Zoe. I didn't say this earlier too, but Zoe, I don't even know if we technically knew each other. And she wrote me a letter and had a bunch of people sign it, like while I was sick. And it was like, wow. Like, what an amazing person. She is an incredible human. I love her to death. I love her so much. But like her thoughtfulness and the way she was able to make me feel seen in a very dark time, I just think is so powerful, and it's just a reminder, like, yeah, our community is special, and it's even more special when we can uplift each other.
Well said. All right, we're going to get a guest question. This one is from Sherry McConkey. Let me find it. Here we go.
Hi, Kimmy. It's Sherry McConkey. My question to you is the hard parts about being a professional athlete. Remember when we were at CMH and we were talking about all the social media stuff you had to post, the pressure of being in movies, and I remember you talking about loading up your car and driving with your snowmobile and driving from Mammoth to Whistler to go film with the Absinthe guys and the pressure of being in movies. And I think a lot of the public don't understand the hard things about being a professional athlete. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Oh, Sherry McConkey, you have part of my heart. You're such an amazing woman. You've been such an inspiration. Thank you so much for calling in. Yeah, we had a really fun time at CMH. Justin Eels was there too. We just got to shred like awesome trees. And it was just such a fun experience. But we did get to do a lot of talking. And it's like the depths of balancing career and like personal life and just expectation. I feel like that's so much of it is, it's like we have such an amazing job. And we work really hard at being out there. But then there's also these like tug of wars where it's like, there's a lot of expectation. Like you have to not only are you just an athlete, like you can't just show up on your snowboard. You're a marketing tool, and you're trying to promote yourself, and you're trying to have a social media presence, and it all comes down to the numbers. And then like I'm filming with a crew that I feel like I'm totally having to earn my spot, and it makes you feel like you're walking on eggshells. Like everything can jeopardize one move, like one mistake could jeopardize your career. And it's those 4:30 wake ups and the 9 p.m. return. And if you're doing 4 sunny days in a row, it's like the tax that it takes on your body, and then your sled burns down, or which has happened to me. And like you're taking like this tax on your body. And yet it's like this, it's invigorating because you're like working to like absolute top and bottom thresholds of your existence. And it also teaches you about what you're capable of. You know, like capability is such a conditioned muscle that we have to continuously use to feel like we can have those thresholds. You know, if you never know you can run a mile and then you hit that mile mark, like you might go 1.25 miles next time. It expands your ability to like trust and believe in yourself. And when you're taken past your threshold, like that's where some of the deepest progression or mistakes happen. And those are those learning curves, you know, like some of my biggest injuries, or even watching some of my friends die, like in the mountains, and having that rhetoric or like that narrative put on you, especially as a mom in the sport now. It's like the risk is a lot. And knowing that it's worth it, and like trying to explain to people that don't understand the sport or the mountains, like why it's worth it, why that risk is something that we push against. And to me, I feel like it's like this capability of leaning into like a life well lived and lived to the fullest. And sometimes that can be taken for granted or taken and spun around in a way that doesn't feel good, because people are like, oh, so you're willing to die. Like you're willing to die to do this thing. And it's like, I'm not willing to die. I just want to live life with purpose. And I want to be accepted for the progression that I believe I'm capable of. And that includes even on social media, you know, like I'm not all the photos that I post on social media. And yeah, I have to have a presence so that I have relatability. And is my relatability on social media going to impact how my sponsors support me, when really all I want to do is be on my snowboard, because that's where I feel my safest and my truest, and not even just as a career, but like as a human. So I feel like just the tug of war with like the balance of how we navigate a career out of a passion, and how things have kind of spun in the last decade of really highlighting like all the positives, has made it feel pretty glossy. And I think we need to go back to like the reality and like tell more stories. Like I want more stories of all of these athletes that are crushing. Like where did they come from? How did they get where they're at? Like what is their drive? Let's hear about the depths, because that's going to make us all realize like we have so much deeper that we can go. If we only show the glossy perfect, that's where it becomes almost unattainable. And you feel like you're on the outskirts living in this trench of depression or misery or loss or grief or whatever. Like I want to be like in that space of peace and happiness, and they look so amazing because they do all these hard things. But like really, I feel like I have gotten to where I am in my career because of the hard things in my life. It keeps me coming back to snowboarding because that's where I feel my safest.
That was beautifully articulated.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sherry. Thanks, guys.
I don't even know. I don't want to talk. Can you just keep going? This is, you mentioned the sled burning down, allegedly for legal purposes. We happen to have a question.
Oh my gosh, yes.
From Elena Height.
Oh,
Here we go.
Hey, Kimmy. This is Elena calling in. I am super excited to hear that you are gracing us on the bomb hole. And I have been trying to nail this down to one question, but I think that we have known each other for 22 years now, if my math is correct. So I have two questions for you that range over that course of time. My first question is, you have been out now with some of snowboarding's most legendary snowboarders ever, and you've obviously carved your own path amongst those riders, but between old Burton days, DC, Standard, Absinthe, you've kind of seen it all. And I'm wondering if you have one standout trip or session filming, and who it was with and why it was so special. And then my second question for you is, there is folklore about a snowmobile fire that you started in Whistler. And I would love for you to tell us all about that. And if it's true or not. Hope you're having fun. Thanks, guys, for having me. And can't wait to hear this episode.
Wow, thank you, Elena. Oh my gosh, I've known her since she was 13 years old, and we've experienced a lot of life together. She came down and supported Chris and me and the kids while I was sick. And I mean, gosh, talk about community. She is one of those. I just want to wrap my arms around her all the time because she's an amazing human. So favorite film trip in all of that. So this one comes to mind, and only because it really helped me navigate the rest of my career. I was on Standard Films. I mean, there's so many I could mention. By the way, so many people have been impactful in my career. But this one, it was actually, I was with Mods Johnson and Lonnie Kauk and Mike Hatchett out in Tahoe at the Buttes. And I mean, I felt like I was amongst the gods watching those two ride this terrain. And I think Jeff Curley was out there shooting photos. And I just felt like watching them was such a privilege because they just saw the mountains in such a unique way. And, I had an incident with my sled there too. And that's not the point, but I did do this hill climb. And then I somehow clipped the edge of this tree and my sled rolled on top of me and I got pinned against this tree and my track was still spinning and I was under my sled and I couldn't get off and Mods had to come up and roll the sled off of me. But in that same day, I watched Lonnie Kauk hit this really massive step down, or at least it felt really massive from the bottom. And he kept inviting me to hit it, and I said no. And I think some of that was in embarrassment and humility. I just didn't want to ruin the landing. And that was an experience I dealt with a lot. I would always let the guys hit the jump as many times as they needed to land their tricks. And then I would try to hit it with a bombed out landing and try to land first try so I didn't waste time. Sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. But this time, Lonnie came down after he was done sessioning and he said, something along the lines of why didn't you come up and hit the jump? And I was like, well, it feels like it's too big. And I also just didn't want to ruin the landing. And he was like, you should come up to the top. And he brought me, or I got up to the top of the jump and looked down. And he was like, you're never going to know if you can hit something if you don't stand at the top. And it stuck with me forever because after that day, even if I was scared of a jump, I would always go to the top because the perspective from the top looks a lot different than the Barbie angle or from the bottom. And I think that's just fear management is look at it from a well-rounded perception or a perspective. Look at whatever you're dealing with from all sides because you never know what you can handle. And so from that point, I end up in the future, right after I was coming back from a big knee injury, I ended up going out and stepping up to stepmother up in Whistler. And that was really because of his advice. Chris wanted to hit that jump and I was like, it seems really big and it seems really scary. The landing looks really flat, but if I don't go to the top and if I don't stand there and at least just look, then I'm never going to know. And so, that's just something that has always stuck with me is the follow through of looking at it from all angles. And then Okay, the sled. The sled. Yeah. Great question, Elena. You know, Ben Ferguson recently sent me a photo and it was on somebody's random Instagram. And he was like, is this you? And I was like, oh my gosh, could those just be eliminated? But there's a really interesting story here. So I'm going to just elaborate a little. Yes, I burned my sled down on accident. The brake cable got pinched in the back of my truck. And because I had my like emergency brake on my sled, and when I reversed it out and it was frozen, the line was frozen. And so we were at the Hurley. It was pouring rain. And I'm going to go back because I think it was the day before. One of my really good friends growing up, C.R. Johnson, had died. And he had died at Palisades doing a line that he had always skied. And it was a really traumatic situation because a handful of years prior to that, he had had a TBI. So he had already been recovering from a big brain injury. And then he had been warned, like, if he went back to skiing, there was a likeliness that if he hit his head again, he could die. And at the same time, Kevin Pierce was coming through all of his head injury. And so I get this call that CR died. And I was just devastated. And, you know, we were going out to the Hurley. I was with Leanne Pelosi and Jeff Keenan and maybe a couple other people. And I was staying at Jeff Keenan's house with Leanne. And so I was like trying to like figure out like what I did, you know, like I just was trying to deal with grief. And it was so sudden and hard, but I knew, like, as I've said, like the mountains were like this safety for me to like go and feel my big feelings. And it was like, I could harness myself. So we're going up the sled, the trail, and it's icy, like it's pouring rain and icy. And I look down and there is a flame like up to my waist coming out of my sled. And I've got a plastic trash bag on. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So I like jump off my sled. And I think Leanne's ahead of me. And she was like, no offense, Leanne, but like you were dropping a lot of things off the back of your sled. I think you probably remember this too. Like she was kind of a junk show. And then my sled was on fire. And like they were far ahead of me. And I just had to stop because I didn't know what even to do. And I couldn't even get snow off the trail to put it on my sled to put it out. And we heard that the cat was coming from Braylorn. And so, like, we had to move my sled out of the way, but we had to let it burn. I'm so sorry, environment. Like, I'm so sorry. It was a true accident. I will never do it again. But so my sled burned to ashes. All that was left were metal rods from the A-arms and things. And then there was a trailer down at the sled head that we had, trailhead, that we had to like go get. And then we had to literally shovel my sled, all the ashes into my truck because I had to take it with me. And I get back to town and I'm just like, this is insane. And on my way back down the Hurley, I had this crazy experience again with these two bald eagles. And I felt like it was this sign that CR was there. Just like, it's all good. Like, I'm here, I'm soaring, I'm cruising, like we're good. And I just remember bawling like the whole way back to Whistler because I was like, shit, like all I want to do is just like be able to snowboard. But like, I keep having my world rocked by all these different losses. And it just felt really hard. And so that was the sled. And then the irony of that is I had insurance on my sled and I found an identical sled to mine in Tahoe. And my insurance said that I had to drive my ashes of my sled back to the salvage yard in Nevada so that they could ensure that they actually had my sled for insurance purposes. So like 2 days later, I end up leaving and halfway getting down to Tahoe, I get a call from CR's sister and she's like, hey, we're doing a family only like celebration of life at our house. We would love it if you could make it. It's tomorrow at 12. And I had scheduled to pick up my new sled at like 1 p.m. in Tahoe, right down the street from where they were doing this family celebration of life. And so it was this like intersection of life where it forced me to leave, but it was for the right reason, to like celebrate somebody. And I dropped my sled off at the salvage yard, picked up my new sled, went to the celebration of life, and went back and kept filming. But it was like this crazy time. So that's very in-depth, Elena, but thank you for the question.
Wow. Wow.
Just insane story after insane story after insane story. It doesn't stop. Wow.
And I think the through line is that when you're saying, you're mentioning like these things kind of keep coming into your path and these hard things that you're like, oh, I'm just trying to be in the mountains. Why is this? What's going on? But I think also it's important to just like note that every time something like that happens, you never turn away from it. And you're facing it, and I think that's very hard and super powerful. And you are then able to return to the mountains for that solace and stronger. I mean, it's putting this lightly. I think it really is remarkable.
Thank you, Mary. I feel like the mountains are what give me my strength. You know, it's like what conditions me to remind myself, like, of what feels good in life. You know, all those the things that cause pain and like hurt. Like the mountain is just like this teacher. It's a mother. It's my parents. It's CR. It's all the people I have lost. I feel the most connected to them when I'm out there because I feel most connected to myself. Like there's no distraction except for the distraction I put on myself in the mountains. And that's like, that's the peace. And I feel like that is what life is about. It's like that is the overcoming, is coming into that space where you can find peace again.
I also feel like there's a constant of a lot of non-resistance, a lot of acceptance. Like I feel like you've obviously gone through a shit ton of grief and traumatic experience, but what I hear too, you know, like kind of reckless optimism combined with like a lot of acceptance.
And maybe that's a coping mechanism. It's like, because I think if I succumbed to the challenges, it would feel way too much. And like, yeah. So I think it's like the only way that I even know how to compartmentalize it, because otherwise it just feels suffocating and sad. But like when I can be out in a space that's like invigorating, it makes you feel alive, because ultimately we're all going to die. And I think I've faced that, is like, I'm not afraid to die. I'm afraid of what it does to the people here. And so I'm going to live with the most intention and try to harness the most positive perspective, because I feel like that is the way I want to leave this planet. And yeah, that's all I can do.
Well, you're doing a great job. You're doing great, Kimmy.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, let's just keep banging them. We got a lot of good guest questions.
Oh my gosh.
We got a lot of them. You're in the hot seat today, Kimmy.
I know.
You're just getting interrogated. But you're doing great, and I'm really enjoying listening. So this one's from your husband and your family. Here we go.
Hi, Mom!
Hi, dear. You're on the bomb hole. Can't wait to listen. We want to know, or we want everyone else to know, what you were going through when you said yes to natural selection, and how much you had been snowboarding and how much you could actually snowboard during that time. Anything else, boys?
I love you, boy!
Oh my gosh, they're sweet voices. Like that is like what I live for now. Like just to hear them like in that glory of their happiness is just so wonderful. And for Chris, my rock, the man that has stood with me through so much and did not waver when I decided to go to natural selection after almost dying from cancer. Thank you. No, that was pretty dramatic. So yeah, that was, his question is great because I love them too, by the way. This is just such an honor to be able to have all of this shared experience right now. So I finished radiation. So like my chemo treatment, my cancer treatment was 6 rounds of chemo, 30 rounds of radiation, and a double mastectomy. I finished the radiation on August 1st, and I think it was early September, and I got a call, and I had been watching natural selection over the course of my pregnancies, and they had invited me on multiple occasions, but I was either pregnant or just early postpartum. It was like I just couldn't make it happen, though I was so invested as a viewer. And it was something that I was a deep desire of mine to like participate in because it just looked like such an incredible experience. And so I get a call from Travis, and it was maybe mid-September, and he just kind of opened the door to any possibility of me being part of the event. He said, you could be a commentator, you could be a judge, or you could compete. And there was no pressure. It was just like an open door. Like, if you want this, it's here for you. And I just felt so accepted in where I was at that point. And I had so many doubts. I mean, I had not been on my snowboard much. That trip to Bald Face really reminded me that I could snowboard, but I wasn't doing tricks. Like, I was still pretty weak, and I was still doing like a infusion, like a drug for my chemo until the end of November. So I was still kind of immune compromised and dealing with a lot of my recovery. And I hadn't been in the gym for like 3 years because I'm now just after having a baby, all these things. So I felt like there were so many ways my inner dialogue was talking about limitations. And so when the mountain opened in early November at Mammoth, I started doing some laps, and it was funny. And Travis, I would love to hear from you about this, but like Travis came to Mammoth and took a few laps with me. And I almost felt like it was him checking in, like, can she ride? And it was so awesome because I think I was doing a couple of 360s in Forest Trail, and I was just having so much fun being back on my snowboard, knowing that like I didn't have anything else to prove. Like, I had just overcome this sickness, and this season was just a year to just like embrace the good. You know, Burton had been so graceful with supporting me, and they put no obligations on the table for me. They just said like, heal, recover, get back on your board, like really take the time it's going to take to like recover from this. And that was super encouraging. And so I had zero obligations and zero pressure to do anything. I probably could have sat on the couch for another year and I would have been fine. And I just decided to have the courage to say yes. And I was working with my therapist, Jenna, and we really just discovered like my why. Like, why would I say yes to something like this? And I think the industry probably had the same question. Was like, I wanted to be back with my people. I wanted to say yes because being a mom of two, especially with little ones, like I need dates in my calendar for a trip. Otherwise, it's really hard to prioritize getting on my board and like going away because there's just so many other things I could be doing. But if I have dates, it's like I can arrange the childcare, I can make it something tangible. So like I liked this idea that natural selection was like dates, and it was taking me to Revelstoke and it was taking me to Alaska, and those were like two big places I wanted to go back to. And I wanted to be back with my crew, you know, like Ben Ferguson and Mikkel and Zoe and Haley, like all these people that I really loved and admired. I wanted to be with them. And it was terrifying at the same time because, I mean, as we all know, it's just wild. Yeah. Like, you watch that event and you think you know, but not until you're standing up there dropping in, especially Revelstoke. Like, that was not at all what I had signed up for. And I dropped last, like dead last, out of all the guys and women. So I was up there by myself watching everybody have carnage. Like, Mikkel got washed out in his line. Ben Ferguson got lost on that cliff. And I'm like, you have no place right now. Like, you are so stupid for being here right now. And I just remember, like, I just want to get down in one piece. And it was terrifying. Like, I didn't even know where I was going to go because everything that I had thought I was going to ride didn't look fun from the live feed at the top.
That was Boulder Park here. Yeah. That, I mean, arguably one. I mean, watching it from the warm comfort of the announcer's booth is in a completely different situation. But even that, we had our jaws on the floor the entire time because that venue is maybe one of the gnarliest venues in snowboarding of all time. I mean, that was a crazy day.
It was just so hard to navigate because of all the trees.
Yeah.
Like you put any of us on the top of any of those lines directly on the top, it would have been so much easier. But when you have to navigate your way through fields of flat trees that all look the same and make sure that you have flow. And I had just not been in a competition environment. And, I think Elena kind of told me, she was like, it's one of those situations, like you're coming back to the start gate. And I stepped away from the start gate intentionally, because I didn't do well at it. But it was really awesome because I had to just trust why I was there. And I was like, you know what? This could be the most humiliating day of my life. And it very well still stands as that. With grace, I hold that. Thank you, everybody, for being part of that moment with me. But it was like the universe saying, okay, I said yes, and these are my whys. And it was the universe testing me. Like, are you sure that's your why? Because you're up here right now, and this is going to be embarrassing. And are you okay with that, even though you're fulfilling that why? And when I got to the bottom, and my just that whole first experience of it was just really humbling. And I was super grateful to be there with the crew. Like, everybody was so wonderful. It was so nice to just be back in an energy and feeling like a normal human again, not like a cancer patient. And I think that coming out of cancer, all I wanted to do was feel normal. And I didn't want this cancer thing to be the headline of my name all the time. I wanted it to be yes, overcoming, but also want to recognize that cancer is never done. I'm still going through so many scans and things. So holding that space as well. But just being able to step back into my life as a snowboarder and being see, I still can be part of this community and it still feels healthy and good. But then when I got to Alaska, I was able to reform my whole perception of what this experience was going to be like. And it felt freeing and revitalizing to step back into those mountains and just be able to embrace it for whatever it was going to be. And I'm so grateful and proud that I was able to ride amongst all of those people and amongst that women's field that were so nurturing to me and so supportive. And I remember leaving Alaska and kind of dusting my hands off, being that was it. That was so fulfilling. I don't need to do it again. But yet I'm so grateful I said yes, because it pushed me past that threshold of capability. And it conditioned me to remind me how hard of things we can do despite where our body is at. Our mind, we can condition our mind to do hard things. And in that situation, it was 100% my mind that got me there.
There's another, the philosophy of Kimmy Fasani that I think about often is you said about that experience when you were trying to figure out if you're going to say yes to it. I remember you saying, trying to figure out, am I ready? Am I ready? And then getting to the point where you were like, are we ever really ready? And that is so impactful to think about, because it's anything, especially when you're pushing yourself. I mean, you're always trying to do something that you're not totally ready for, because what's the fun in only doing what you're capable of all the time? How are you going to grow?
Yeah. And I mean, and I love hearing that reflection because it goes back into so many things that we've talked about already. And it's this preparation of I didn't choose cancer, obviously, but you're never ready for what life is going to give you. You can only be as prepared as you think you're going to be, or as prepared as you can. And to face life head on and just be able to accept it and meet it where it's giving you opportunity. And the resistance, sometimes, yes, you have to push away from that wall and you can't accomplish whatever that goal was that the resistance is stopping you from. But life is always going to hand us something. And just being able to take a deep breath and go, okay, I wasn't ready for this, but I can face it because I've done a lot of other things that are hard.
Sidebar, can I order the book, The Philosophy of Kimmy Fasani? Because I'd like to.
Same.
Can I pre-order that? Can you write that, please?
Yes, that's coming in about 20 years. After we get this movie out. It's out now.
Sign me up for pre-order. But also, like, thinking about the natural selection thing, you couldn't write a better Cinderella story. You literally, like, you think, like, everything you went through, the rise of your snowboard career, and then kids, and the kidney failure, and your parents, and then cancer, and just, like, the hardships. And then after all of that, you still get a goddamn podium. Like, it's a Cinderella story, Kimmy. Couldn't write a better one.
Oh man. Does this mean that Travis Rice is the godfather, the fairy godfather that comes in and is like, I have this
the glass
magical,
slipper.
Yeah, I have this magical thing. Because he does kind of grant wishes like that.
True.
Like he makes things appear.
Totally. He gave the opportunity that ends up finishing out this full circle story. And thank you, Travis.
That's fantastic. All right, should we just let's run down there's so many. This one's from another person that you mentored, and this is from Steffi Luxton.
Oh,
Here we go.
Hi, Bombhole, and hi, Kimmy. I just wanted to tell Kimmy that she is a special, special soul, and she's impacted the lives of so many people around her. Kimmy, you've faced adversity, yet you've remained the strongest person I know. You've not only inspired, but you've guided countless women into the mountains. And without you, I think a lot of us wouldn't be where we are right now. Your selflessness is truly inspiring. So my question is, has this beautiful selfless trait of constant generosity and kindness and remaining the strong woman, no matter the situation, and really just always putting people in front of you, ever taken a toll in ways that the outside world hasn't seen? I can't wait to hear this episode. Enjoy, and see you soon.
Whew. Thank you, Steffi. I hope you crush all that is coming for you with natural selection. And I'm just so I'm so humbled by your words, because I personally feel like how do I say it? The journey through my own career sometimes felt really isolating. And my desire to give back really came from watching people like Shannon Dunn do the pajama party back in the early 2000s, or Leanne Pelosi doing her early movies. Runway Films was like some of my first filming experiences. And it was through those opportunities that it showed me what it takes to help the next person like feel seen. And for a long time, I lived in shadows of different riders because I wasn't doing well in contests. And I guess my intention has always just to better the sport. Like I have a big heart, and sometimes I feel like, how do I say this gracefully? But it's like, sometimes I feel like I've been forgotten about because I'm not the one that's pushing myself anymore. And I think it's really, this question is a good reminder that our impact doesn't always have to be in front of a camera or in front of a spotlight. How we help people behind the scenes can impact how they navigate their career. And I'm just so incredibly humbled and honored that I've been able to have a place in that in snowboarding, because I believe in this sport, and the generation above me, I feel like we're kind of pushed out and didn't really stick around. So we lost that transmission of information, like the Natashas, the Taras, the Janas, the Victorias. Like, I would have loved to spend more time in the mountains with those women. And so now I feel like the least I can do, even if I'm not on my snowboard, filming a video part, it's like, how can I help these other girls navigate the industry in a way that feels more accessible so that they then see the power of mentorship?
She doesn't miss.
No.
She doesn't miss.
Yeah. I feel a very successful speaking career in the future. I think the element of mentorship and what you even earlier in your career when you still were filming video parts, you were already taking part in that and giving your experience forward. And I think it's also interesting because mentorship, obviously, as a word, has been around forever. But 15 years ago, the concept just wasn't as ubiquitous as it is now with the rising generation, which I think is something that's so exciting. And as you look forward into the rest of this season, the next couple seasons, how are you moving into that further?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm really hoping that with the release of this film, people see behind the lens of the effort that it takes to hold that vulnerable space, that real, raw space to make us feel seen in ways that are hard and also accepted, and also the allowance of building boundaries. And I hope that by showing the behind the scenes of this film, or like the behind closed doors approach to this film, that it just helps more people feel like they can be themselves and that they can go through their challenges and own whatever metamorphosis it feels like they need to go into, because I would love to be able to uplift more people and help create an environment that feels encouraging and inspiring. And I hope maybe I can do more speaking things where I can show how our challenges can actually build us to be the best versions of ourselves.
Incredible, Kimmy. I got another topic that I wanted to tee up, and this is in regards to snowboarders wearing helmets. And I believe you approached Bridges and said, why don't you guys run photos of snowboarders in helmets? And I'd love to hear you tee off on this topic.
Yeah, being an up-and-comer in the sport, my mom was really adamant, obviously being a nurse, that I wear a helmet all the time. And I just felt like there weren't enough photos being published of pros wearing a helmet, and it made it feel really uncool. And I get it. Like, I understand, because even my husband still doesn't wear a helmet. But I think that there's so much value in like the younger kids seeing us protect our heads, because it's really one of the only things that is very hard to heal. And I guess I went up to Bridges because I was like, I just think that this could be a compelling story. I think I was in college. I was going to school and I was really into writing. And I approached him on the sun deck at Mammoth and kind of cornered him. And I was super nervous because Bridges, you are nerve-wracking. And I love you, though. But yeah, so I just like brought it up that we should write it. And he was like, what are you talking about? Like, pros wear helmets and we publish photos. So we went on this like deep dive, and he let me be the byline of the article where I got to send out all the questions. And it was like the Terriers and all of them, like the biggest people that were filming at that point answered the question. And it was in the magazine, and it was just amazing. It was like my first, what would I refer to that as? Like
byline.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Published article in a magazine. And it was just so awesome because I think that was really like this crux point of like leaning into using my voice. I had this desire. I wanted to know more. I asked the question, and he said, let's do this. And I think that began this like advocacy for like speaking up.
Yeah, what was the crescendo? Or what was the takeaway from the article?
Like Terrier said that he did, and it was because of his kids. Like he really wanted his kids to know that was part of the importance. And then other people just that said like it threw off their equilibrium. It didn't feel right. Like they hit their head more when they were wearing a helmet. There was so many different opinions, and I really valued all of them because it just brought to light like the decision, the choice. And now when I go to the mountain, it's just so rad because I don't wear my helmet all the time. Like if I'm riding with my kids, I'm starting to because they have been asking, like, why don't you have a helmet on? And I'm like on the baby runs, you know? But I think it's really important to model what I'm asking my kids to do. But most times, like even if I'm just riding groomers, I'll have my helmet on because I just think like it's one risk that I don't want to have. Like if I fall or if somebody hits me, I don't want it to be, oh, she wasn't wearing a helmet. Like that's one thing it's a choice that I choose to make because it's one that it's not worth it. But I think everybody has their own opinion. But for me now, it's like really trying to model what I want my kids to know is important.
Good stuff. And I've been in conversations with brands behind closed doors where they'll be discussing signing a rider or talking about signing a rider, and they're like, I don't know, that guy wears a helmet. I think he's really sick, but I don't think we should sign him, you know, and it's a real thing.
It's tricky. And like I was just having this conversation on the chairlift the other day that even like on social media, you know, when brands post photos of kids not wearing helmets, it validates that it's cool to not wear a helmet. And so the more I think every pro should have their own choice, like of wearing a helmet or not. But I also think when we are thinking of the next generation, it's important to have a helmet. You know, we wear helmets when we bike. There's a lot of risk in that, and it's proven that there's a lot of risk on the mountain. And I think it's really just helping to create a normalization of protecting our heads.
Can't do much without your brain, Mary.
No, you need that. You need that brain. You got to protect it.
Before I forget, and before you guys get out of here too, we have some photos courtesy of Aaron Blatt, and we're going to do sign prints. Kimmy's going to sign some photos for us. Silk will put them on the screen here. And then we got some action, we got some lifestyle, and all of the proceeds are going to go to a charity. And in addition to that, before we explain the charity, I have one extra Big Nice Burgundy snowboard, which is the Capita Big Nice Burgundy snowboard. We had a limited release. They're sold out on our site immediately, and most shops are sold out of them. But I saved one, and we're going to do $25 raffle ticket. We'll randomly pick a winner. Phil the dog will pick them, actually, via a dog bone, but we won't get into that. But $25 a ticket. You can buy as many tickets as you want. All the proceeds go to which charity, Kimmy?
Mary's new charity. Mary, can I throw it to you and you can talk about what you've just created with your charity or your nonprofit?
Yes. No, thank you so much. This was a big, wonderful surprise earlier today. Thank you both so much, and thank you, Kimmy. I started a 501c3 registered nonprofit last year in honor of my father. And talking about mentorship and all of that, I think, you know, this builds into that. It's a foundation called Anthology 42 for my dad, Mike Walsh. And it is providing opportunity, resources, mentorship, programming, and scholarship for, young people and wanting to go into writing, photography, filming, emerging career of any age. And we're kind of working right now to start things off in 2025. So you can look it up at Anthology42, like 42.org. And we're on Instagram at A42FDN.
Amazing. If you want to support too, you just buy a print on bombhole.com or enter for the raffle for the Big Nice Burgundy. So appreciate you guys for supporting the cause.
Thank you guys so much. That is like, I'm without words.
Thank you for what you're doing too.
I do have a note here about Mountain Baker.
Oh yeah. Chris and I used to be part of an organic bakery in Mammoth called Deserted. And the girl that ran it, Mimi Council, she is an incredible baker and has taught me so many things. And I love cooking. I'm not a great baker, but I've learned a lot. And her and I teamed up for a cookbook. And it's called The Mountain Baker. And it was such a fun experiment to learn about baking and to kind of put my name on a cookbook and to to share recipes that I had kind of cultivated throughout my life. Some are my mom's recipes, some are Chris's mom's recipes that are kind of manipulated a little bit to my own flavor. And it's really this book that we didn't feel like there was any of out there, where it focuses on altitude baking. And then we tested everything at sea level. So if you live in the mountains, this book is for you. And it's just fun. It's like some are easy, some are a little bit more complicated, but it's like adventure recipes, hearty recipes, things that you can take in the mountains with you. And we share a lot of our personal stories, and it's on Amazon and so many other, it's in cookbook. I mean, it's in bookstores, it's online, and yeah, it's called The Mountain Baker. And it was just a really fun adventure to like dive into that whole realm and like have to learn so much about the cooking side of the industry.
It's a really great cookbook. I have a copy, and the recipes, the photography is beautiful. The stories you both share about the recipes are really cool, and the recipes are accessible because I don't consider myself much of a whiz in the kitchen. I'm trying, but I can still make some of the things, which is great. So
fantastic. I love it. Well, Britt loves to cook. I don't know, pick one of those up. But let's get into hot takes. Are you familiar with hot takes?
Yes.
Okay, I should. What I realize about this is like I never send this to anybody before they come on the show. A lot of times they're broadsided by the questions. I myself, when I was a guest on the show, was broadsided by the questions. I didn't think about it, so I always just ask people. I never think about my answer. So
that's amazing.
I apologize, but yeah, we'll get started. Who is your GOAT? To you, both male and female in snowboarding?
I've thought a lot about this question, and you know, there's the common, like the Jamie Anderson. I just love watching her ride, but I'm even going to go now into I'm going to say Elena. I watch Elena navigate from going from pipe riding to backcountry to holding her own amongst some of the most intense terrain, and just the way that she is navigating the evolution of her career. I'm so excited to see that legacy play out. And then for men, man, I'm going to say Mikkel Bang has such incredible style. He has a huge heart. He can hit some of the most jaw-dropping jumps and make it look so effortless. And he has just an incredible ability to read the mountain. And it's been really fun to spend time with him out in the mountains. And I'm just trying to avoid the most commonly said ones.
Those are great answers.
Yeah.
Okay, would you consider snowboarding an art form, a sport, or a lifestyle?
Snowboarding is an art form and a lifestyle that go hand in hand.
Love it. Who's one of the most underrated riders in your eyes?
So I guess because I was sharing a story of him earlier, it would be fitting to say Lonnie Kauk, because watching him even just ride Main Park, he has an insane style. He's so well-versed in so many different conditions. He goes and hikes lines in the Sierra and rides things that have probably never been ridden. I'm just going to go with him. He kind of flies under the radar, and he's also an insane climber. So yeah, shout out to Lonnie.
Great answer. Steel or powder?
Pow, for sure. You will never see me on steel.
It's a shame. It's a damn shame. Who's got your favorite style?
Danny Davis.
Woo!
I love watching Danny ride. He makes everything look so smooth. He could hit the littlest park jump and it just looks like a message from the outer realm. And he's just an amazing person. So definitely Danny.
I like Steely Dan when he gets on the rails.
Yeah.
It's my favorite version. Favorite method?
Nicholas Mueller.
Woo. It's a beauty.
What's your favorite snowboard video ever made?
If I'm going past, I would say Resistance, just because it was this landmark in my life. Current stuff, there's been so many different iterations. I'm going to say, let's just go with, it's still older, but 91 Words, the way that movie came out in a magazine was so rad because it was free. It was revolutionary. Watching David Benedict, just destroy in that film was just really eye-opening. And it was also just like in that really developmental part of my life. So it's like Robot Food and 91 Words were just, that early generation style of filming.
What is your favorite snowboard graphic ever made?
I really love when brands integrate artists that are like on the come up in the sport. And I'm so excited that Burton has done a board with Shannon again. I'm like 90% sure that that's out there right now. It's like the dolphin graphic on the Burton boards. You know, watching Shannon kind of come back in and watching her do another iteration of her graphic is really awesome because she's been such a huge role model for me, and I love seeing her back in the mix.
Dream sponsor. Anything in the world. Doesn't have to be snowboard related.
This is very random, but being a mom, I really want a laundry service that can come and like do all my laundry. And that sounds really funny, but when you do a lot of laundry, that would be a nice sponsor.
Laundry sponsor.
That sounds great, honestly.
That would be fantastic. If you go heliboarding 3 people, good times, maybe like where you're describing no camera laps in Alaska, perfect conditions. Who's coming? You got 3 seats.
3? Well, obviously, I would like you guys to be there. Can we have like a couple helis?
One of those like
ones,
if it's like
we'll
10
just do
people.
like 10.
Like the military,
the military grade, like 2 propellers.
Yeah. Okay, we're going military grade.
Okay, we're going big, like Chinook. And I'm bringing Chris for sure. And it's going to be when my kids can ride POW. So my kids are coming because I want them to experience that side of our life. So I know it's, just the family. Like get out in the mountains with the family and just be offline and really connecting into what Chris and I love the most.
Last question. What is, in your opinion, the worst trend?
All the hate. I just feel like we don't need to be so divisive, and social media has become like this opinion landscape instead of like an embracing landscape like it could be. And I just think that we can hold the negative comments off social media and like try to get more one-on-one human contact so that we can enjoy more presence together.
God, she doesn't miss, Mary.
No.
She doesn't miss.
What's it? 3-point shots without hitting it?
Yep, swish.
Yeah, swish.
Swish, that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, see?
All right, I saved this guest question from the end. This is from Michelle Parker. Here we go.
Michelle.
Hi, Kimmy. I love you unconditionally. This is Michelle calling in. Thank you, Bombhole, for doing what you do. Kimmy, you've been such a steadfast friend in my life, a constant source of inspiration, determination, focus, drive, and compassion. Somehow you've always known the right words to say to comfort a friend. You're thoughtful and also have so much grit. I've seen it in the mountains and I've seen it in life. It's a wonderful balance that makes you who you are. In more recent years, watching you be so vulnerable with your journey with cancer and seeing that grit come out to recover and compete in natural selection, all while gracefully raising 2 children, I have been in absolute awe. I know Judy raised you to be an incredibly independent young woman, but I'm curious where you find the strength to overcome so much. I want to know your why. What drives you? I know this is going to be an incredible episode that I've been waiting patiently for. So congrats for getting Kimmy on the show. Thank you all.
First of all, Michelle, I love you unconditionally. And I am so grateful for how you've shown up for us over the years. And I'm so grateful for your friendship. So thank you for the question. What drives me? My drive comes from a desire to be the best version of myself, you know, being okay with making mistakes and like trying to overcome even just that mental hurdle and showing my kids that we are capable of digging deep even when we feel like there's nowhere else to go. And it also comes from the people that I surround myself by, because those are the people that give me the little nudge when I feel super isolated and alone. And there's nothing like having a community of people that show up for you when you need it most. And I think the way we show up in our own life, it gets paid forward and then it comes back to us when we need it. So, it's from all the people that have shown up for us, have given me the strength to now hopefully hold that space for others that need it from me.
I'm without words, and what an awesome, eloquent question and an insightful, sharing answer.
Now, we're starting to round towards the end of this conversation here, and we obviously talked about Butterfly in a Blizzard, your new film, quite a bit. I can't urge people enough to go watch it, but if you were to give an kind of crescendo ending statement about the video, about the movie, I should say, rather, like what's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? What do you hope people get out of seeing your new film?
I hope people can watch this film and just get a little bit of encouragement in their own life that even when life feels hard, our resilience is there. We just have to find it. And this film has taken me about 8 years to get to this point, and a lot of it has been offline, and I'm so excited for people to be able to experience all that we are sharing, because I just feel compelled that it will positively, I hope that it positively impacts people to be kind, because we never know what people are dealing with. And ultimately, that feeling of isolation, of like dealing with our challenges silently, is really painful. And so I hope that this film that is so vulnerable and raw is just part of this evolution of normalizing challenge and struggle, and how we can embrace it and move forward together.
Another banger, wise nugget of wisdom from Kimmy Fasani. Again, I will be pre-ordering the philosophy of Kimmy Fasani that will be coming out in 25 years.
That's right.
Couple last questions. Setups. What board are you riding? What do you got?
Yeah, I ride Burton. Kind of anything. I'm kind of exploring right now with some new shapes and everything, which is really fun. I love kind of going into that realm of product development. So I'm trying the High Fidelity. I'm bouncing between that and the Hometown Hero. And I'm on the Lexa EST binding. I ride the Felix Boa boot. I also really love, and I find that navigating the mountain with my kids with Step-On is actually really easy and convenient and fast. And having a husband that skis, like, I can keep up with him because I just step onto my board as soon as I get off the lift, and I'm not like taking any time. And so yeah, all of it. Like, I just love trying new products. And now, because I'm not really filming, it's like really, it's just a creative process to find things that are new and kind of allow more creativity in what I'm doing on the mountain now.
Beautiful. Yeah. You want to throw any thank yous out?
Yes, I would love to thank so many people. Everybody watching, you guys for having me here, for letting me share my story, Mary for joining me, and my family. I'm so grateful for Chris and the boys. Like, the best journey I've ever been on is being a mom and supporting these kids and helping them learn the ways. And then all of the people that have just been part of this extraordinary life. There's been so many people that have uplifted me and believed in me. I would love to thank all of my sponsors, Burton, Mammoth, A New Earth Project, Dragon, Juneshine, because without them, I wouldn't really be able to maintain this life, and I have so much more desire to still give. So thank you to everybody that has just believed in me and supported me through so many of life's reckless, crazy adventures.
Incredible. The last question I'm going to ask you of this interrogation that you've been under for the past however many hours. What's next for Kimmy Fasani?
Great question. I don't even really know. I'm excited to see kind of what this film brings. I'm ready for a new chapter to open. I'm kind of I'm stepping away from the filming side of snowboarding and really opening the door to just new opportunities and embracing how I can be a mentor. I would love to be able to nurture the women's side of snowboarding in a way that I can bring women together and help them feel like they can always come to me. I want them to feel like there's like an open door where if they want to learn something, I can help them. And so just kind of letting the universe like unfold and take me into a new journey. The other thing that I'm really trying to focus on is the foundation that Chris and I started. It's called the Fasani Foundation, and it's really aiming at helping people that have been through hardship and loss get back to the healing properties of nature, where we take people out into nature and kind of expose them in a way to some hard things in nature, but also like nurturing elements of nature that help us realize, like, even though life feels hard, nature can be our healing component of the process of getting through these challenges. So if anybody needs support or help, I truly urge you to visit our website, and you can apply to be part of our program at bf-foundation.org.
I love it. We did it.
We did it.
I mean, huge thank you, Kimmy, for joining us and throughout this discussion of so many challenges and hard things in life, also bringing laughter and joy and embracing the learning and the growth through this, and sharing that with us through your career, the movie. Just thank you.
Thank you guys so much for just opening the door. It's just such an honor to be able to speak. And I think you guys have created, or Chris, you've created such a safe space here for people to share authentic stories of their life. And I think it's really encouraging and helpful for everybody that's watching, because it does create a familiarity and like a relatability where it's this trickle, it's a ripple effect where we feel like we have a common bond that's even beyond snowboarding.
Cool. Well, thank you for unloading a freaking machine gun full of wisdom all over like that was just, I'm inspired. So thanks for coming and sharing everything you've done for snowboarding. I can't say thank you enough, Kimmy. So
thank you.
Awesome. And lastly, Mary, why don't you, well, I'm going to thank all of our listeners, all of our sponsors, all of our Patreon members. Thank you guys so much. But why don't you're a pro broadcaster. Why don't you hit us with the sign off?
You know, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chris, for this amazing temple of snowboarding that you've built. And thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been an incredible episode. I feel so lucky to have been a part of it. And make sure you're following The Bomb Hole at The Bomb Hole on Instagram, on YouTube. And stay tuned. What do you got next week? Is it a group chat?
Hard to say if you don't know, Mary.
Okay. I'm going to assume it's a group chat.
Yep.
You know, and thank you so much for being with us. We'll talk to you next time.